All right, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. This is MD with 100% Tilted Discussions with Winning Underdogs. And today I think we have somebody who is the epitome of a winning underdog. And from the outlet, you see a lot of success. You see a lot of achievements. You see a $1 million closet. You see a lot of philanthropy. You see a lot of moves. But you probably don't know the woman that has come up in this story and how she got to be where she is today and overcoming the struggles, the challenges, the victories, and the moves she's had to make to be that winning underdog. And in the studio today, we have none other than Theresa Roemer.
None other
than. Woo! Now, let me just start by saying this is what I love, and I think you and I both love about social media.
Yeah.
Because that is how you and I connected.
Right. Exactly.
Mutual friends were on the show.
Yeah.
We made a post. You actually commented.
Yeah.
And by being diligent with our social platforms,
right,
we connected.
Yes.
But I'm curious though, out of all the people which I know, because let's see, on Instagram alone, how many followers do you have?
I think I'm at 231,000.
Which you get a lot of DMs.
Yeah. Oh, phew.
Your notifications goes
oh
off
my God.
the chart.
Yeah. But what's interesting and what most people don't know and understand is that I answer every single DM.
Do you really?
Yep. I mean, sometimes it's delete if it's...
That never happens.
No, I mean, like, if somebody's begging me for money, I delete, I mean, like, because I get asked that on a daily basis. I'm from Peru, please help me. And the sad thing is you can't help everyone. I will go broke just trying to help the entire world. And so, I've probably only really helped a few GoFundMes because I truly believed in that GoFundMe, because I know there's a lot of GoFundMe pages that are fake and they just want your money and whatever. But I mean, like, it's like I used to tell my husband, we have to weed through what charity work we're going to do, because we can't write checks to every charity. You just can't. Right. You'll go broke.
Yeah.
And I'm skipping forward here, but I remember when I climbed Mount Kilimanjaro, and I spent time in the villages before I climbed Mount Kilimanjaro in Malawi. And when I came home from that trip, I said to my husband, let's sell the house, let's sell the cars. I want to give all my money to everybody in Africa, because they're still living in grass huts with dirt floors, and
it's shocking.
The fire in the middle of the hut where they're cooking, and no running water, and that climb, that whole trip changed me so much that I really just wanted to come home and sell everything and just give all my money.
Did you feel almost guilty?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I dealt with that. I went to Nigeria, and hemispherically weird, because when you get home, I mean, in less than 12 hours, you're from the dirt in Africa to a Starbucks in America.
Right.
And even at our lowest of lows in this country is way better than many times their best.
Yeah.
And you have this sense of guilt because you're living the exact same modern time in completely different, polarizing experiences of livelihood, damn near survival.
Yeah. Total survival. And and then that's why before I climbed Mount Kilimanjaro, we literally went over to help drill water wells for these remote villages. And I can remember I had my camera, not just my phone, but I had a camera, and I was taking pictures of these little kids, and they were smiling, and I was giving them gumballs. They didn't even know what a gumball was, right? But I was giving them gumballs, and I was taking their pictures, and I remember turning the camera one time and showing this little boy his picture, and he just kind of looked at the picture, and he'd look at me, and this woman came over, and she said, he has no idea that's him on that camera. And I'm like, yeah, he does. It looks just like him. And she's like, he's never seen what he looks like.
Yeah.
They don't have mirrors out here in the bush.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh my God. And I remember when I came home from that trip, somebody said to me, you've changed. And I said, you damn right I've changed. You go take a trip like that and you will come back a changed person too. It's not all about writing a check. Sometimes you need to get out there and be hands-on and experience what these people are experiencing.
And I think you and I have some similar stories here, because when I went, I was actually there to capture and document the effects of a nonprofit that put in water wells in Nigeria. Mm-hmm. And now this was also my first international experience.
Right.
a little overwhelming to take in, to say the least. But taking photographs, and I remember like seeing the scars on their face, which were actually tribal markings that I come to find.
Mm-hmm.
But when you see people for the first time who you may have been the only white person they'd ever seen. I remember one child was up in my arm trying to rub it off, like they thought it was paint.
Yeah.
And then to actually take their picture and show them what they look like.
Yeah.
It was like shocking in their face. Like you saw that too.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then real curiosity
Mm-hmm.
and to go through these villages and meet these people that literally are surviving with bare minimal, but also how happy they were.
Oh, yeah. So happy.
Yeah.
And you're like, they have no electricity, no running water. They're cooking over a campfire in the middle of the hut.
Yeah.
They bathe in the river. They drink the water out of the river. I'm like, you're just like, wow.
Yeah.
And then you look at the homeless that we have downtown Houston, they're living in tents.
They have access to a
they've
soup
got
kitchen.
they've got nice tents. Mm-hmm. They've got porta potties to go to the restroom.
So, I mean, when you came back, and how long were you gone, by the way?
A month.
A month. And, excuse me. Let me back up and find out, why did you even decide I want to climb Mount Kilimanjaro? Yeah, I think we need to go back to that part.
Yeah,
and there's probably a lot of preface, but even before that. But this is interesting.
I know we skipped my whole life here.
We did.
But no, I was part of a group called Child Legacy International, and I got on the board of directors with them, and they were all about providing fresh water to the remote villages of Africa, and they've got a whole compound over there and everything. And I remember one time in one of our meetings, they said, "Oh, well, we're gonna do a climb on Mount Kilimanjaro as a way to raise money." And I said, "Cool, have fun." And I remember one of the board members said to me, "Well, this seems like it's right up your alley. Like you're a fit person. Like, this would be something you would do." And I said, "Listen, honey, my idea of camping is the nearest Four Seasons with room service and a spa." And he said, "Wow, out of everyone I know, I would have thought you would have done this because you're so fit. Like, I'm really disappointed in you." Well, you know me.
That's the challenge right there.
The competitor that I am. I was like, "Oh, really?
Wow.
I'd take that challenge."
Yeah.
And so I knew physically I was there. I knew physically I could do it. I didn't know mentally if I could do it. And I take that back. I knew I have a bad back from years of bodybuilding and mistreating myself, because back in the day we didn't quite know how to lift properly.
I'm going to lift.
And back in the day when I had my health clubs, once again, we've skipped my whole life, but
we're going to get there.
Back in the days, in my health club days, there were very few women health club owners. It was a man's world. And so I, of course, was in my late 20s, early 30s. And so it was like, well, if he can lift it, I can lift it. So I was all about trying to be the guy, not the guy girl, but just the manly girl. Like, I own this health club. I can lift the same weight you lift, kind of thing. And so now, years later, I'm paying the price for that. But anyways, I knew mentally I was going to be able to climb Mount Kilimanjaro, because whenever I put my mind to something, I do it.
And how high is this mountain, by the way?
It's the tallest mountain. It's the tallest freestanding mountain in the world. It's 19,000 some feet. You'd have to go Google it. I don't know. It's 19,000 something. But it's the tallest freestanding mountain. It's not a mountain range. It's a freestanding mountain. It's the tallest one in the world. So anyways, I took his challenge. And so I think there was a book called Kissing Kilimanjaro or something like that. It was a true story of someone that climbed Mount Kilimanjaro. And they said, before you climb Mount Kilimanjaro, you need to read this book, because this will definitely tell you what to expect. Well, it scared the shit out of me. Excuse my French.
Did it? No, it's fine.
Oh, no.
We speak French.
No, but it scared me. Like, the trouble you had breathing and...
What am I getting myself into?
Yeah, and I thought, dang, maybe I overstepped my boundaries here. Maybe I can't do this. I don't know. But then I thought, you know what? You've buried your son. You've taken on the worst of the worst. So you're going to do this, Theresa. And so I trained for it. we read the book, and the book literally explains how you need to train for it too. Literally on a treadmill every single day at a 12% incline with 50 to 100 pounds in your backpack on your back to prepare yourself for it. So I knew physically I was ready for it. I just needed to make sure my cardiovascular was on point.
With bodybuilding in your history, it's almost like doing show prep.
Yeah. Oh, it was total show prep. Yeah. I got my body fat way down.
Fascinating.
My cardiovascular was on point. It's just that I didn't realize when I was in the remote villages of Africa drilling water wells and I was hugging on all those babies that I was going to pick up a parasite, and that parasite was going to rear its ugly head when I was on that climb.
No kidding.
Yeah.
How far into the climb were you?
We were at about 13,000 feet when the parasite started to rear its ugly head.
So when you start at base camp, base camp 1,
Yeah.
what's typically the recommended time frame to go from base camp 1 to getting to?
It's a 7-day trip up and down.
Okay.
And of course, it takes you longer to go up
Right.
than it does to come down because you only go to certain camps and then you have to spend the night so your body can acclimate and whatnot. Yeah. And then you get up the next day and you go more. Mm-hmm. But when you come down, you're coming down.
Yeah. So you hit this parasite hit
at 13 at camp 2, I think we were at.
Okay.
And the diarrhea started, But I thought, okay. We all packed our goodies. We all Imodium AD. We were told what we had to pack. So you got all that stuff with you.
Was it from the water?
It was because I was kissing all these babies. So
No
I'd lost
kidding.
my son in a car accident in 2006, and so I remember when I left for that trip, I said to my husband, when I come off the airplane, when I come home, if I have a little black baby in my arms, it's okay. He said, we don't need any more kids. And I'm like, if Madonna can come home with kids from Malawi, I can too. So every time I saw those little babies, they're just like little 1-year-olds sitting there in the dirt. And you can't help but just pick them up. And they got snotty little noses and they got little animals crawling all over them. And you're just giving them hugs. You're just like, God, I just want to take you home, Mm-hmm. And I'm sure just from the loss of my son.
Was that recent?
That was in 2006, and I was climbing Mount Kilimanjaro in 2011.
Okay.
So about 5 years.
I mean, for any parent, that's always going to be.
Oh, today it still feels like it's, this summer it'll be 15 years, and it seems like it was just still yesterday. But anyways, I picked up the parasite from hugging on all the babies. I don't ever believe it was from the water because we were at the compound every night after we would drill the water wells. We'd always be at our compound, and they've got fresh, clean water. So. And when we were climbing Mount Kilimanjaro, we were always boiling our water. I mean, we were doing everything we were supposed to do. So I never believed for 1 minute it was from the water because nobody else in our group got sick. It was just me.
Mama Theresa just kissing babies, man.
And I was just kissing all these babies and everything. And on day 3, so that was 10, 12 days prior when we were in, drilling all the water wells. And so now this is another week, and now we're finally on the mountain. And the diarrhea starts, but I didn't really want to tell anybody I was sick because if I said I was sick, they'd make me go down. That was just the rule. If you're sick, you're going down, because they can't take the chance that something's going to happen to you up higher. Yeah. Well, Miss Competitor, I'm like, I got this. I got my Multi-Millionaire. I can do this. And the next day, worse. Just coming on faster, more sooner. Whatnot. And now we're climbing and we got a lot of clothing on. Mm-hmm. It's not warm up there, okay? But I'm keeping it a secret. And my best friend was actually doing the climb with me because I said, hey, for our 50th birthdays, let's go climb Mount Kilimanjaro. She's like, what'd you get me into? So anyways, finally the night that we're supposed to summit, we're at base camp. We're getting ready to summit that night. So we get into base camp around 4 in the afternoon, and they said, okay, eat a meal, lay down, try to start to get some sleep. We're going to wake everybody at midnight, and we're going to start the summit. Like, cool, okay. Well, when we got to base camp, the chills had started. So now I got diarrhea, and I got chills.
You got a fever.
And I'm like, oh, Lord. And I'm going back and forth to the outhouse a lot, and I'm just like, come on.
And nobody noticed?
No. Because,
makes you got to pee a lot.
Right. You know, so, and every single one of us had a person with us, you know, along the trail. And so, you know, just, and you didn't try to hold it. I mean, you tried to hold it as long as you could possibly hold it.
Yeah.
But anyways, so now I'm laying there trying to get some sleep. I'm shivering. I'm going to the bathroom a lot. I'm just like, oh God, this is bad, but I got to do this. I told everybody in Houston I raised $100,000. I told everybody I was going to climb this mountain. I'm going to do it. And we got up. Now you got like 3 layers of long johns on. You've got ski gear on, like, because now we're climbing up into the glaciers, okay? And so you got a lot of clothes on.
Yeah.
We got our headlamps on because it's midnight. We're starting. And we're
So you can make it to the summit by dawn?
We're supposed to summit at dawn.
Okay.
Yeah. And
Wow.
so
Wow.
we're probably not even halfway into the climb, the summit. And I'd ran out of toilet paper. And so I said to my girlfriend, hey, come over, I need you. So she came over and her headlamp hit me and she's like, wow, you have blood everywhere. And I'm like, what? I had blood coming out my bottom end. I had blood coming out of my nose, my mouth. And she's like, what is wrong with you? And I'm like, well, I've been sick.
I'm fine.
But I said, don't tell. She's like, no, we have to tell somebody. Like you look like you've been in a car accident. And I'm like, no, we can't tell anybody. I don't want to go down. I'm not going to go down. So they brought the main guy over, Michael, and he couldn't quite understand. He thought I'd just gotten sick. And I was like, no, dude, I've been sick for days. Like, so this whole time that we've been eating and carb loading, it's been going out of me. As fast as I put it in, it's going out. And he's like, well, you need to go down then. And I'm like, I'm not going down. And he's like, well, then I'm going to take the group and we're going to keep going, but I'm going to leave you with your guy. And if there's any point where you've got to go down, he's with you. You're going to go down. And I'm like, okay, fine. Yeah. And we trudged and we trudged. And mind you, I'm weak.
Yeah.
I'm so weak.
You're at altitude. Are you wearing oxygen at this point?
No, because I don't even know that they have oxygen available because they don't want you to know that. They feel that if it comes a time where you need oxygen, you just need to go down.
I see.
Because they don't need that at the top.
Right.
So I am so weak, but I'm like, I can do this. I said, if we just go slow, I can do this, you know? And we kept going and we kept going. Then another guy started to fall back. He was getting short-winded. So then he and I together, we were like trudging and trudging. And it got to the point where I couldn't breathe much anymore. I was gasping for air. But I was just like, I can do this. I just know I can do this. And I sounded like Darth Vader. Like with every step, it was like,
wow.
I mean, it was so, and you would literally take one step and feel like you just couldn't breathe anymore. But and I kept praying to my son. And I kept saying, baby, Mama needs your wings. Mama needs your help. Like, I can do this, but I'm going to need you to help me. I need your help, baby. Mama can do this. You know I can. I just need your wings, baby. And we got to the top. Everybody else got to the top around 7 a.m.
Yeah.
I didn't get to the top till 9:42.
Wow. But you made it.
But I made it. And then when I got to the top, I said, now send a helicopter. I just gave you everything I can possibly give you. And they said, honey, helicopters don't fly this high. We've got to get back to base camp. And I said, I can't. I don't have anything left in me. And I can remember Michael, the main guy, because he'd stayed at the top. Now, mind you, now high altitude sickness had kicked in because I've been at the top too long. It took me too long. So I remember him just locking his arm in my arm and just starting to drag me.
It's kind of an out-of-body experience.
Yeah.
From what I've read of other people in the States.
Well, I think base camp must have thought I died because they started to come up looking for us. And they met us probably halfway in between. And that's when they just really all started grabbing me and just pulling me. And they knew something was going on because the farther we got down, the colder I got. And I should have been getting warmer because we were getting away from the glaciers. Right. And when I got to base camp, they literally knew that I was on death's door. And they literally threw me on this makeshift, I was floating in and out at this point, but I called it kind of like the Flintstone wheelbarrow looking thing, because it was like this flat stretcher looking thing, but it had one big, huge wheel. I remember that. And they just literally threw me on there and put like 6 sleeping bags on top of me and strapped me on. And literally 6 guys took off running with me.
Wow.
So as long as there was decent path, they rolled it. Yeah. And then when it got to places where they couldn't roll it anymore, they picked it up and just carried it. So when they say Kenyan runners can run, so what took us, I think at this point, 4 days or something to get up to, they had me from base camp to the gate where an ambulance was waiting in 8 hours.
Wow.
They left base camp with me somewhere around 3-ish.
Did they have an IV with you or anything, or
they had nothing?
You're just rolling?
They just ran.
Wow.
And when they got me to that ambulance...
Do you remember that period?
I remember... No. I remember being on the stretcher at base camp and them piling sleeping bags on me, and they strapped I call it a camelback with the water thing and put it by my mouth. And they just took off with me. And all I remember is my head doing this a lot, like bouncing, you know. And I just was floating in and out. And literally they left with me somewhere, they said around 3 in the afternoon, and they got me to the gate at 10 p.m. I was not conscious when I got to the gate. They said I had 104 fever. I was battling high altitude sickness. I had the parasite. I had dropped like 13 pounds. I was severely dehydrated. I woke up the next morning in this clinical hospital thing, and this guy was sitting beside me. And I have to tell you the funny thing about this guy is when I arrived at the compound to drill the water wells, I kind of looked like Barbie. I'm from Texas. I had hair and makeup, and I looked great, you know. And I remember when I arrived, he was an electrician from Arizona, and he was there donating his time at the compound doing electricity and everything. And they introduced me to him, and he said, "Oh, who invited Barbie?" And I thought, that's mean. I can climb this mountain with you, you know. Well, who do you think was sitting beside me when I woke up? Him. And I said, oh my God, like what happened? And so he kind of filled me in on everything. And he said that he'd ran with me the whole way.
This guy from Arizona.
I said, wait a minute. You're the one that made fun of me when I arrived. You summited, you climbed the mountain too. And I looked down and he had his hiking boots on and everything. And I said, and you ran down that entire mountain with me, with your, you know, after you just finished climbing. Why? And he said, because all I could think of is if you were my wife, I would want somebody to be with you so that you could get the proper care when you got, in case there's a language barrier or whatever. Yep. And I said, oh my God. I said, you're my hero. And he goes, no, you're my hero. He said, you summited a mountain fighting a parasite and you never gave up. He said, you're the strongest woman I know.
You still in contact with him?
Yes. But I when I finally got a hold of my husband, who was sitting in the Seychelles waiting for me.
So good.
Well,
How'd it go, babe?
When I had originally asked him to do it with me, he said, no, unless it involves bourbon and a bed, I'm not going. But he said, I'm going to fly ahead of schedule. I'm going to fly to the Seychelles, and when you're done climbing, I want you to meet me in the Seychelles, and we'll celebrate. Well, when I finally got a hold of him, he said, throw as much money as you can at that man. Well, he wouldn't take my money. And so when I finally got home and was still healing and still sick, I was like, what can I do for this guy? Like, God, I'm like, he, you know? Yeah. And so I sent him, I found the best 5-star hotel in Sedona, Arizona, and I bought him a week's worth stay and spa packages, and I just went all out, and I sent it to him and everything. What
do you do to a guy that saves your life? I mean,
I know, right?
It won't take your money. Like,
He called me, and he had his wife on speakerphone with him, and he's like, I can't believe what just arrived at our house. And I said, I can't believe to this day that you still ran down that mountain. Yeah. And he said, you don't understand. This is just amazing. You know, my wife and I, we've been married, I don't know how many years. It was like 15 or 20 years at that point. He said, we never even had a honeymoon. He said, this is, how can we ever thank you for this? And I'm like, how can I ever thank you? Like
Yeah.
that's still not enough, you know.
This
And
story,
the doctor said there's no reason statistically why you're here.
did you think at any point like this could be it for you?
No.
I think, and you know, for me, doing some research on you
Mm-hmm.
and getting to know the Theresa behind the Instagram, and to do my due diligence, and you telling this story, I think is the one thing that people probably never even know about you. And this is why you are where you are today, is because of that level of resilience, that there was not even a moment you even just said of like, this might be it. You just knew that whatever it is that you're going to do, you're going to follow through with it.
You know,
Like,
and it started as a kid.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you grew up in a small town, right?
Yeah. I mean, like, I was born prematurely. Actually, I wasn't even supposed to survive. My mother, her water broke somewhere around like 6 months with me.
Wow.
And they said that they needed to do an abortion, and she refused.
Oh.
And for some reason, the leak sealed shut, and she was able to finally have me early, but was still able to. So it was kind of like I wasn't even supposed to happen. Like, you know, like
Right.
you were supposed to get killed, you know,
Yeah.
in the beginning. And then as a child, I ended up with rheumatic fever 4 different times. And with rheumatic fever, I ended up with a heart murmur. And so I was a sickly child. And I remember at a children's hospital in Omaha, Nebraska, that it's like yesterday, this doctor telling me, you're going to be a sickly child. You're never going to be normal. You're never going to get to be outside and run and play and be like the normal kids. Your heart isn't going to be able to take it. And you're definitely never going to be able to have babies or anything like that. Motherhood's just, no. It'll be too taxing on your heart. And I thought, what? I don't think so, you know, and I lived on a ranch. And so I would just go outside. I had a little brother at the time. I would just go outside and run and play and jump and climb trees and slide down the barn roof into the haystacks and run through the cornfields and do everything my parents asked me not to do. I even started, you know, we were in a little country school with 2 schoolrooms, Kiowani it was called. And so we would play kickball out in the outside and, you know, just high jump and land in the dirt. And I would just do everything I was not supposed to do. And by the time I was 18, because they kept me on a daily dose of penicillin to make sure I would never get strep throat again, because the strep throat was what was causing the rheumatic fever, which...
Wow. Okay.
By the time I was 18, the doctor said, I can't even really consider you a heart patient anymore because you have strengthened your heart so well that I can only hear that heart murmur when your heart rate's around 180.
So being active and being out and about is actually what helped you.
Your heart's a muscle.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like when people are in congestive heart failure, if they're capable of doing some form of cardiovascular, even if it's just walking, they can actually strengthen their heart back up. They don't, you know, depending on what caused the congestive heart failure, you know. There was a point where my husband had this runaway heart problem, and literally by the time he got the ablation done and everything, he was kind of in congestive heart failure. His heart was only working at like 45%. And I said, you're not going to die on me. No, I don't care. Every day you're going to walk to the end of the driveway and back. And then pretty soon we're going to walk to the mailbox and back. And then pretty soon we're going to walk in. And within a few months, his heart was up at like 70%.
So your upbringing in a small town, it was not a lavish, like growing up in wealth and...
Oh, gosh, no. We lived on a ranch. I think my dad made like $500 a month. Wore hand-me-downs all the time.
You had siblings?
Yes, yeah. Had 2 sisters I was raised with and a brother. Had a very dysfunctional family. A lot of mental abuse, verbal abuse, physical abuse. That same ranch that I was living on when I was attending Kiowani endured getting my hand broke because I wasn't sweeping the dining room floor right. And so she picked up the broom and beat me with it and broke my hand. Only to have a doctor tell me, well, I think you deserved everything you got. Now, this was back in the early 70s. I say nowadays that's called child abuse, and I would have probably been removed from the family.
Yeah.
But back then,
We grew up in different times.
we grew up in different times. Yeah. And so, yeah.
Were you the only one of your brothers and sisters that got that?
Oh, no. We all endured it. We all endured it. Was sexually abused by my grandfather. And both my sisters were too. And no matter how much we told our parents that grandpa had done that to us, they called us liars. They wouldn't believe us. And only as an adult now do the stories come out of, yes, oh my God, it was true. And the cousins, they were sexually abused too. It's like so sad that it wasn't believable when we were kids. But now as adults, we all talk to each other and go, wow, it happened to you too? How come you didn't tell us, Yeah. I mean, to find out my cousins were sexually abused by our grandfather too, it was like, wow, and you never told us. Like, yeah.
It's dark secrets, man.
Yeah.
It's especially now looking back where we are now as a society. My gosh, you look at somebody wrong and, but at that level, I mean, it's so strange to hear so many people went through that. In our time and even the generation before us. It's very strange how, and nobody talked about it because number one, would you even be listened to?
Right.
And number two, you're then challenging that could be a matriarch of the family, and that's kind of how they got away with it.
Right. But what's really sad is I've never let my upbringing with the mental abuse, the physical abuse, the verbal abuse, telling me I'd never amount to crap, being sexually abused, totally feeling like an underdog all the time. I found out at the age of 12 that I was adopted. And my mother, not adopted by her, but by my stepfather. I'd always thought my stepfather was my dad. Come to find out, we're playing house and we find our baby books and it was like Elizabeth Ann Muir, Marty Joe Muir, Brian Edward Muir, Theresa K. Paulson. I was like, whoa, why is my name different? Well, we were going to tell you when we thought you were older and you could understand, but we might as well tell you now because the cat's out of the bag. Well, then, I'm like, oh, he's not my real dad. That must be why he treats me different. Well, he didn't treat me different. That was just something I made up in my head. But I can remember wanting to know who my real dad was, and my mother would never tell me. And I can remember we were on a trip to Disneyland, and we were leaving Disneyland, and we were getting ready to head back to Wyoming. And my mother said, oh my gosh, your real dad only lives a couple miles from here, but too bad, we're headed back to Wyoming. And I thought, oh my God, you're so mean. And this is just years and years of meanness, but I thought, how incredibly mean. And I remember when I was graduating from high school, I said to her, I have no idea what happened between you two, but I want to meet my real dad. And whether he wants to meet me or not I don't care. I'm graduating from high school. He has a right to know. I want his address. And it was so funny because she got his address. I sent him the invitation for my graduation and everything. He sent back like this 12-page letter explaining his side of the story. And it was so funny because growing up, I never looked like anybody in my family. Everybody was brunettes and heavy set, and I was like, here's this tall, skinny blonde. I always felt like the stork had left me at the wrong house, I was like, how come I don't look like anybody?
I don't fit.
And I'll never forget, he'd sent me this little gold locket, and I opened this little gold locket, and there was a picture of him, and I was like, oh.
It all made sense.
This is who I look like. Oh, my God. And then my mother was like, oh, my God, you're going to love your dad. He's such a great guy. And I was like, oh, wait a minute. So I said to her, why did you always paint such an ugly picture of my dad? And she's like, I never wanted you to run away and find him. And I'm like, I wouldn't have had to have run away to go find him if you would just have let me meet him, But that's just how, and it's really sad because over the years I'm a huge person that believes in empowering not only women but people, never wanting people to don't be the victim, be the victor. I don't care where you've come from, I don't care what you've endured, I don't care what you've had to overcome. We all have a past, we all have a story. And you can either sit around and feel sorry for yourself and wallow in self-pity, or you can get out there and make a difference in this world. And about 6-7 years ago, I was the keynote speaker at this amazing event downtown. And we were filming it like we always do and everything, and we put it out on my YouTube channel. And my mother happened to watch that video. And she called me on the phone one night, and she just said, I can't believe you're spewing all these lies about your upbringing and your life, and how dare you, and as far as I'm concerned, you're dead. And I thought to myself, oh my God, how can you say such a hurtful thing? Like, you know what I speak is the truth. You know, this is therapeutic for me. For me to be able to talk about it and to get it out and to share it with people, especially young girls, that might be experiencing the same thing, it's therapeutic. And I will never keep my mouth shut. I will never do that. And so she wished me dead that night. And I remember sitting there crying to my husband saying, how can someone be so mean? Like, how? And he says, well, you've probably just embarrassed her or something, Right. And I'm like, it's not meant to embarrass her. It is what it is. Mm-hmm. But I'm not going to stay quiet about it any longer.
Because how many people haven't had that beacon in their life to make it relatable and go, I can actually be something different than my past.
Right.
Many people don't know that.
Right.
Right. They think that is their pre-written destiny as what's happened to them.
Right.
Theresa, have you found that with a lot of people, and I don't know where we get this in our conditioning when we grow up, but it's almost like being a victim has a badge of honor to it. That people almost kind of resort to that victimization of life, going,
like, woe's me, look at me.
I suffered, right?
Yeah.
Because it's not about the suffering.
No.
It's what you did as a result.
Right.
What you did with it.
It's like when you make a mistake in life, hopefully you learn from that mistake and you don't do it again, but you learned something valuable from it to be able to move forward.
But that's people's hang up though, because I don't know if it comes from conditioning from a generation ago, but there's in success and overcoming anything, wisdom comes from falling on your face, right? You made an error in judgment. You for whatever decision you made at the time you felt was the best at the time, didn't have the outcome you wanted. So many people look at that with fear going, well, that means I'm incapable. Right. So that's why they shy from mistakes. That's why they try to hold on to perfection so much, because they have a skewed sense of what failure actually is. I mean, you and I come from bodybuilding, right? So without failure, you're not going to grow.
Oh,
which that's the most tangible way.
To me, failure shows that you're at least trying. So as horrible as my mother has been in my life, there were a few instances in my life where it was amazing. At the time, I didn't think it was, but it was. So once on that same ranch, I can remember I got the flu, and I was throwing up. And I said to my mom, I went to her and I said, can somebody else milk the cows tonight? I'm throwing up. I'm sick. And she's like, yeah, I mean, like, I'm sure one of your siblings can milk the cows for you, but you're going to have to go do their chores. And I said, I can't. I'm throwing up. And she said, well, then you need to go out and have a discussion with the cows that you're not going to be able to milk them. They're going to become engorged and be in pain, but, And I thought, oh, God, you're mean, So I remember going out into the field, hollering for the cows. As I was hollering, I'd throw up, throw up. I remember sitting there milking the cows, throwing up, milking the cows, throwing up. And I thought at the time, God, you're so mean. Oh, I hate you, But what was it teaching me? It was teaching me work ethic.
And it's what got you down.
So now let's fast forward, say 5 years. We've moved to town, and I get a newspaper route. Okay, now we're in Wyoming, right? So it snows, right?
God, I love this, Theresa. This is so fantastic.
So I have this newspaper route. You got to get up at 4 a.m.
Yeah.
Deliver newspapers, go to school.
And how old were you at the time?
I was in the 8th grade at this point, seventh grade.
Okay.
7th grade.
Okay.
And I remember waking up that morning and it snowed. So normally I would ride my bicycle, right? So I look outside and I'm like, oh my God, it's like 2 foot of snow. I can't ride my bicycle. Mm-hmm. So I go to my mom and I said, Mom, I need you to take me around to deliver the newspapers. It snowed like a couple feet of snow. And she's like, I didn't sign up for that job. And I'm like, well, how am I supposed to deliver the newspaper? I can't ride my bike. And she said, I guess you're going to walk. And I'm like, oh my God, it's going to take me forever. I'm probably going to be late for school. And she's like, not my problem. And I thought, oh, God, I hate you. And I remember going and trudging through that snow and delivering the newspapers. And of course, got home. I had frostbite, sat in the bathtub, thawed out, was late for school, everything. But I thought to myself, what did that teach me? Work ethic. It snowed. So what? Figure it out. Now, nowadays, I'm sure if some kid walked into their parents' room and said, oh my God, this is what okay, honey, get in the car. I'll take you around. But she was trying to teach me, that's not my job. That's your job.
Do you think that was by design, or is that just how she was raised, and so she just continued that pattern?
I don't know. I don't know. But I look back at those two instances and think, oh my God, like that was instilling the work ethic in me.
Yeah.
And from that point on, it did not matter what job I had or what I had to endure. Like, failure was not an option. Quitting was not an option. And you're damn well going to get the job done. And so that's always stayed with me in business, in competitive bodybuilding. You know, it didn't matter what I was competing in. Like, it just, yeah.
So you graduate high school, you're 18, and what was your next move? Like, did you?
Well, I was supposed to go to college, but I thought life was really all about, you know, getting married and having 2.5 children, living in a house with a picket fence, and living happily ever after, because that's what you're led to believe when you're from small town USA. So I married my little high school sweetheart immediately, and got hit the very first time on the night of our honeymoon because I wanted to have sex. And he didn't. And he hit me for the first time. And I was like, well, where'd that come from? Like, you know.
You'd never been that way dating?
No, never, never. And I spent 7 years married to that man, getting the crap beat out of me almost every day. And in some ways, I felt like it was normal because, well, my mom did it.
Right.
So I guess you're supposed to be able to do it too.
That was your story of what love was supposed to be.
Yeah. I was like, okay, well, growing up, I got beat up, so I guess you're supposed to be able to beat me up too. Like, and then at one point, my mother did say to me, you need to leave him before he kills you. And I thought, well, that's strange coming from you. Like, and one night, he was watching the Playboy channel, and I said, you know, this is getting disgusting that you have to watch this crap. Like, you know, you're just such a pervert. And he, big guy, reached over with one hand. Of course, we had a waterbed back then. That's aging myself. But we had a waterbed. But I remember him leaning over with his one arm, grabbing me by the neck, and throwing me into what they call like bifold doors.
Yeah.
This was back in the 80s. So there's bifold doors. And I landed on the floor of the closet, and before I even knew what was happening, he was on top of me, choking me. Wow. And I thought to myself, oh my God, my mom was right. He was going to kill me. It's too late. And by the grace of God, I don't even know what came over him. He just stopped, and he got back up and went over and laid in bed. And I said, that's it, I'm leaving you. And he said, if you even try to leave me, I'll kill you before you get out the front door. And I remember getting back in that waterbed and laying on my side and just laying there crying all night long. And as soon as I heard that door shut in the morning, and the garage door,
he went to work.
I grabbed whatever clothes I could find and threw them in bags and threw them in my little Bronco 2.
I remember those. Yeah.
And went to my friend's house and hid.
Wow.
And he came looking for me. And it took me like 2 weeks to file for divorce. Took all my sick time at work, just hid out, got a restraining order, everything, you know, but
was this in that small town?
This is not that same small town, but it was still a small town in Wyoming. Yeah. Yeah.
Did you leave then? Did you leave Wyoming at that point?
Well, stupid me. One of the guys that was kind of in our group of people that we associated with and partied with and had fun with, whatever, became like the knight in shining armor. Oh my God, Theresa, I can't believe you've been through this. You know, and so I was like suddenly like, oh my God, my knight in shining armor. He's gonna protect me and rescue me, you know. And before I knew it, you know, we were married and we had 2 children. And I woke up one day and thought, what are you doing? you know. And my
Good
brother
man,
died.
though. I mean, it wasn't abusive or anything.
No, it was never abusive. Good marriage, hard worker, but you know, you get caught up in the fairy tale of, okay, you're my knight in shining armor, and now I'm going to live happily ever after.
Right.
Until one day you kind of wake up and go, what are you doing? And what really compounded the whole thing was my brother died. My 23-year-old brother, who was literally my best friend, my buddy, my pal.
Was he older or younger than you?
He was younger than me.
Okay.
I was his older sister. But he was the one that I would always go out and climb trees with, and that's how I became a tomboy, you know, climb trees, because he was like all by himself. He was the only boy. So we became buddies, because when my sisters wanted to play house and play with dolls in the house, you know, I didn't want to be that sickly kid inside, so I would go outside with him, and we would do all the boy things and climb trees and swim in the cow tanks and do all that kind of stuff. So we were so close that when we both decided to have our first children, we had them like 6 weeks apart.
Wow.
Yeah. But literally, he died of a massive heart attack at 23. He was in the Air Force and didn't even know he had a heart issue. They said on the death certificate that he had a birth defect in his heart. Kind of like the athlete's heart, where they're just going down the court dribbling the ball and they just die of a heart attack right then and there. Yeah.
Wow.
So that devastated me. Because he was my best friend, my buddy, my pal. And so my marriage was already on the rocks at that point, and it just compounded it even worse, because I can remember my soon-to-be ex-husband at that point was just like, you know, it's been 6 months, get over it. And I said to him, I said, you know what? You could die tomorrow and I could replace you. But I can't replace my brother. I can find someone else in life to love that's going to love me, which is what you're doing, okay? But my brother can't be replaced. And you don't know how bad, when our son died, I kind of wanted to look at him after about 6 months and go, hey, it's been 6 months, get over it. But I didn't, you know. But, yeah, so it was at my brother's funeral when they were laying out all the awards that he had earned in his time in the Air Force that none of us knew about.
Wow.
And I thought to myself, wow, look at everything he's been able to accomplish in his life in such a short amount of time. What am I doing? Okay, I'm a good mom, but what else am I doing? Like, what are they going to say at your funeral, Theresa? And it was like, yeah, and mind you, I've been working since I was a little kid on the ranch. I've never not had a job. And even at that point, as a stay-at-home mom, I was still teaching aerobics part-time and helping run health clubs at that time. So I was still, but I thought, even though I was getting paid, I thought it was kind of like just past, it's a hobby.
Right. It's fun.
It's not really a career, you know. So I can remember when I got divorced, I was like, wow, what am I going to do now?
What did you do?
I'm like 29.
Yeah.
This is, I don't even have a career. Like, what have you been doing, you know? And so that's when I decided, wow, okay, I've always worked in health clubs. I'm divorced. I can work full-time in a health club, you know? So I literally left that small town, went to a bigger town, was headed to California to my real dad to start a life in California when a friend of mine in this other town said, well, hey, was
this in Wyoming?
This was in Cheyenne, Wyoming. She said, hey, one of our health clubs is looking for a manager, blah, blah, blah. Why don't you stop and say hi to me and blah, blah, blah. Next thing you know, I'm in Cheyenne and I'm starting to manage this health club and everything. Kind of like, wait a minute, I'm trying to get to California. But it was like, this is too good to be true, you know? Yeah. And then the opportunity came up for me to buy my first health club. And I was like, oh my God, like, and you have to remember, when I left that marriage, when I left both marriages, I never wanted anything. I just wanted my freedom. But when I left that marriage, I left with a TV, a microwave, clothes, and kids. That was it. And I remember my very first house I rented was like this little tiny 1-bedroom house, no furniture, and my landlord was this little old lady, and she felt so sorry for me. She's like, well, I have a couple mattresses out in the shed in the back. So she literally threw a couple mattresses on the floor, and that's where me and my kids slept. That's and then I learned how to make this daybed thing, and I bought this little cheap table to put the TV on, and like that's where I started after my divorce. And in less than 3 years, I'd saved enough money for a down payment on a health club. I was working 4 part-time jobs and going to school carrying 16 credit hours.
And raising 2 kids. And your kids were how old at that time?
2 and 4.
How did you do all that? I mean,
I look back now and go, how the hell did I do that?
Because with time and being present with your kids
well, there was no present. I was literally wrapping them in blankets and taking them to the babysitter at 5 in the morning, so I could teach my first aerobics class at 6 in the morning. So then after that aerobics class, I could shower and get off to school, and then do 4 or 5 hours of school and go to my next job selling used cars.
You sold cars, Theresa?
Sold cars.
Get out. This is incredible.
GMC, Cadillac, Oldsmobile. And I was the #1 car salesman all the time. Mm-hmm.
Really? You must have come in swinging, and they're like...
So I would sell cars till 5. From 5 until about 9, I would run the health club as the assistant manager. And then at 9, I would cocktail waitress until 1 in the morning. Pick up my kids, go home, do homework if I needed to do homework.
With that 4-hour window.
Get a couple hours sleep and get up and do it again. Now, mind you, I was only cocktail waitressing 3 nights a week, but still, I needed, I had to have money to feed my kids.
That was tips. I mean, that was just straight cash. Yeah. So when that opportunity came up to buy that gym, was this it was currently in operation?
Yeah, it was a current gym. And I was, now at this point too, leading up to the purchase of that gym, I had transitioned, gotten away from selling the cars and started my own personal training business. Because I started seeing in the gym how these trainers were making good money, and I was like, "Oh, I can do that." So literally took personal training courses, became a personal trainer. So then I got out of the used car industry and became a personal trainer. But I'm still like teaching aerobics, personal training, running the gym. Thank God I only cocktail waitressed for 6 months, 8 months. Finally was able to let that go. So I'm personal training. I'm training at 2 different gyms. And one of my gyms, the gym that was for sale, I'm training one of my clients who was a very well-known home builder, luxury home builder. And I remember saying to him one day, I said, he said to me, he said, "So have you decided to buy the gym yet or not?" Because I would always bounce ideas off of him. And I was like, "No, God, kind of scared, because God, what if I fail? Like, God, this is big, And he's like, "So you fell, so you file bankruptcy, so you start over. Like, no big deal. It's not the end of the world." He said, "Here, I'll paint a scenario for you. The health club's for sale. You're dragging your feet. You're sitting on the fence. You don't know what to do. But probably a couple months from now, somebody else will have bought it, and you're going to be working for them." And I said, "Oh, no, that ain't going to happen." He said, "Well, you better get off that fence then, right?" And I was like, "Yeah. What are you waiting for, Theresa?" So I applied for my SBA loan. I'm really good friends with the bankers and everything. Applied for my SBA loan, if people don't know, Small Business Administration loan. I don't even know if those are available nowadays. I have no idea.
We help franchisees get their SBA loans for their tune-up franchises and balance. Yeah, absolutely.
But anyways, had to jump through rabbit holes and fences. Like every time I thought I was about to get it, they'd come up with another excuse. And it was just so...
It's a process.
Oh, God, it's a process. And I was just like, this is just never going to happen. This is never going to happen. And then finally one day, I was driving and my banker called and he said, "I need you to, are you driving or are you, where are you at?" And I'm like, "I'm driving." He's like, "I need you to pull over the side of the road." And I thought, oh, here we go.
Bad news.
The bad news.
Yeah.
I've been turned down, and he knows I'm going to cry,
Yeah.
And he said, "You've been accepted."
Wow.
And I, of course, cried anyways. But I was like, holy crap.
Is it because just Theresa's a crier?
No, I'm not. I'm not really a crier. Like most people have never seen me cry. But it was just that overwhelming emotion of, wow, look at everything we've had to go through, because it just seemed like it was stacked against me. I just felt like, because just when you thought it was within grasp and you were going to get it, they'd yank it away from you again, you know, and it'd be like, golly. And back in those days, it just wasn't common for a woman to be a health club owner.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very few. And I knew I could make, and the reason I made it happen in Wyoming was because I knew cost-wise, I could make it happen in Wyoming versus California.
So you were working these 3 or 4 jobs and, you know, clearly just trying to make ends meet with your kids, paying rent, just trying to build this life for yourself. And over time, buying clothes, a little bit of furniture here and there and that kind of thing. Yep. Did you have a financial plan of how much you set aside every month into savings just for that savings fund? Or was it just kind of $1 here, $5 here, whenever you could? And that was kind of your someday kind of something's going to happen fund, right?
Yeah.
So when you ended up doing the down payment, how much was that for you? I mean, was that like your whole kit and caboodle going right up in this thing?
Everything.
It was, I've had a lot of friends over the years that with their stories, it was like either we're going to pay our mortgage and our utilities or we're going to take that money and put it to this idea. Like
I was trying to do it all. And that's why I was working so many jobs.
Yeah.
You know, I could have easily just worked one job and just decided to live okay. But I had a dream. I wanted to work for myself.
You didn't know what that specific dream was, but you knew overall.
Well, I knew that I loved the health club industry. Because you got to remember, right out of high school, you got to imagine, I lettered in every sport in high school. Right out of high school, because I decided to get married instead of go to college, I started going to Jenny's aerobics. I'd never even heard of aerobics before. What the hell is this, right? So I started going there. They said, oh, my God, you have so much coordination and everything. Why don't you teach for us? Oh, okay. So I started teaching for them. And then I got into Spa Vita Nova. And then I went into Gillette Fitness. And so I loved just anything to do with sports, working out, anything being active, I loved. Not only for my heart, because I was supposed to be sickly, remember, but just because it just made me feel good. You know, when my brother died, working out was the one thing that saved me. When my son died, working out was the one thing that saved me. That's my go-to. You know, when I'm stressed or when I'm upset or whatever, working out, I don't care if it's lifting weights or going for a run or whatever. That's my go-to. That's my relief system. But, yeah, I mean, I could have easily just lived a life of with just one job and gotten by. But I just remember my brother died, and I was like, what are they going to say about you, Theresa? What great things have you done in life? What's so great about you? So in the back of my mind, I kept thinking, I need to be great. Like I need to have them talk about me. You know?
Yeah.
And so I wanted to be a good mother, but you know then I started becoming competitive in the bodybuilding and powerlifting, and I started winning, and I was like, "Ooh, yeah," you know. I mean, like so I was like, "Okay, accolades, okay," you know. I'm going to be a great business owner. I mean, like it was just like, what are they going to say about you, Theresa? What's your story?
So how long did you have it? Because your gym's name was Body by Design.
Body by Design.
That was the name you came up with. How long did you own that gym?
I ended up 5 of them.
5 locations.
5 locations.
Privately owned, or was this like a franchise?
Privately owned. Yeah. Privately owned. And I'm telling you what, I almost lost it all when one of my health clubs, it was in a strip mall kind of area, and they were putting a new roof on the building, and they'd met the new roof up to the old roof, and they had to quit. It was on a Friday night. And on Sunday, we had this massive storm come in. And I can remember one of my part-time employees, it was late in the Sunday afternoon. I was in my office doing payroll or doing something, and it was storming like crazy outside. And I can remember him saying, "Theresa, I need you to come here." And I was like, "Dude, I don't have time to come here. I got to get this done." He's like, "No, you really need to see this." So I am following his voice, going towards the back. Now, mind you, I just built another new aerobics room with a floating floor and everything. Gotten a little loan on that one. And I could hear water as I was getting closer to where he was. And then it was dark. And I'm like, turn the light switch on. I can't even find you. And he's like, that's the problem. There's no electricity back here. And now I'm sloshing in water. And I'm like, where is all this water coming from? And he said, I think there's a leak in the roof. So the storm, you know. And sure enough, they'd not sealed up where the So this brand new aerobics room, 1,500 square feet aerobics room with a brand new floating floor and everything is flooded. And so is the hallway coming from the aerobics room. I mean, like, so mind you, I go up to the landlord and, next day and tell him he's got to pay for all this damage. Oh, it's not our fault. It was an act of God. Of course, now I got to hire a lawyer. So anyways, the city wanted to shut me down because I had wires that were, it was flooded. It was a mess. Yeah. I didn't have the money to fix the issue at the time. And of course, now this is in the hands of the lawyers getting worked out.
Because growing, everything was leveraged on debt.
Sure.
Right? It wasn't on liquid cash. Yeah.
And so I said, and I asked my mother at that time, I said, I don't know what to do. And she said, you need to jump ship. You just need to close down, just walk away from it. And I said, are you the same mother that always told me to stick in there no matter what? You're the captain of the ship. You'll go down with the ship. She's like, I'm just telling you to jump ship. And I was like, that's not the woman that has always taught me all these horrible lessons, I went home that night. Now, mind you, I own my own home at this point. Not clear and free, but, making mortgage payments. But still, but I own
the American
it, right?
dream.
and it's a nice house. I went home that night and grabbed a hold of a real estate person that I knew and put my house way under market. But I knew if I did, I would, sell it immediately.
Yeah.
And I literally sold it, got a contract, sold it immediately, put everything I owned into a storage unit except for a bed and a TV and a couch. And I had a couple extra spare rooms in the back of my building, back where the massage therapists and stuff were. And I thought, okay, I'm going to live in the back of my health club for a couple months so I can put every penny back into this company, into this business. It turned out I lived there for a year. My members never knew I lived there.
Really?
Never.
Your kids were there too?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So one room was where we slept. Another room was the TV and a couch. We had the showers, we had the microwaves, we had the washer and dryer. We had my health club had everything I needed, but we lived there for an entire year.
And that saved your business. That got you back up.
And I can remember so this guy decides he wants to buy my health clubs. And I'm like,
how many members overall of those 5 gyms
well,
did you have?
Each gym had a couple thousand members.
Wow.
Wow, you got to remember, in Wyoming, what's there to do?
Right. Yeah, you gave them something to do.
And my gyms had everything you could possibly want in them. To me, it was the adult one-stop shop. I had hair and nail salons in there. I had indoor golf driving range in there. I had massage therapists, physical therapists, taekwondo. I mean, aerobics. I had a pro shop that had a coffee bar in there. Literally,
this was the design of every location to be.
Literally,
wow.
You could be an adult and come there, get your hair and nails done. We serve you lunch too. Had a deli right next door. I mean,
what gave you the insight when you first started that to go, I need to create something that is more than just coming to work out. I want to keep them coming back for more than just the workout, because then it's massive customer retention.
Sure.
Right. Where did that, because clearly that was not the common footprint of
not in Wyoming.
Gym.
No.
Right.
No. And so as an avid health interested person, you mentioned Muscle Development, all those magazines, so I was not, I read a lot of magazines, not like today where you don't ever pick a magazine up, it seems like, but back in the day, that was your only way of knowing stuff was through magazines, or if you happen to travel to cities and see it firsthand.
Yeah.
So I'd been to California a lot and seen my dad and seen what was out there, but nothing of that magnitude was ever back in Wyoming. And so, my whole thing was I just have to have everything. I have to have people want to come here and stay here for a while.
Mm-hmm. Did you ever have anybody tell you that's probably not going to work up here?
All the time.
Yeah.
All the time.
And that's almost what drives you too.
All the time.
Say, oh yeah, watch this.
Well, yeah. That's the best way to get me reared up.
But what I find when I'm picking up on you, Theresa, is it's not that you're trying to prove people wrong. It's that you're proving yourself right.
Right.
I think that's what makes you different about a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
So many people focus on they're focusing on the negative of what people are, the shade they're throwing. You're just, it's going to work. So you're literally just proving yourself that I know I'm right.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with you think I'm wrong.
No.
I think that's a huge differentiator for you in your mentality and what drives you through that.
Well, and like I said, it always keeps going back to my brother dying, mm-hmm. and wanting to know. It's not like I have to be recognized as this phenomenal, one-of-a-kind person that lived on this earth, but I knew there was more that I wanted people to remember me by than just being a good mom. Mm-hmm. I remember years ago I was sitting in New York City in Damon John's office, Shark Tank.
Yeah.
And I had a session with him, and he said to me, "Tell me what your greatest life achievement is." And I was like, "Whoa, this could go one of two ways. Yeah. This is a trick question. Because if I say my greatest life achievement is being a mom, from a business standpoint, he might say, yeah, you didn't hit it on the nail, Ed. Yeah. That was not the answer I was looking for. Or if I list all of my business accomplishments and don't mention being a good mom, will he think, wow, she doesn't think much of her kids? So I was like, well, this is, and I just had to look at him and I said, you know what? I don't think any one person should be defined by just having one great life achievement. I think you're entitled to have many great life achievements. I've had many, and I plan on having many more. And he said, perfect. And I remember when I went to sell my health clubs, this guy kept wanting to buy my health clubs, and finally I said to him, dude, leave me alone. Why do you want to buy my health clubs? Right. And he says, I've done my research. You're my biggest threat. So instead of competing against you, I'm just going to buy you out. I'm like, what do you know about health clubs? Nothing, but I got the money.
Did he own others?
No. Young punk kid. And I was like, well, I can see this going real far.
So rather than spending the marketing dollars trying to compete, just take that money and buy you.
Because his family had money. So I was like, okay. But I went home and I called my mom and I said, why would I want to sell my health clubs? Like, I'm living my dream. Mm-hmm. Like, this is all I've ever dreamed of doing. Why would I want to sell my dream? Mm-hmm. She said, well, are you only entitled to having one dream in life?
Mic drop. Wow.
Whoa. You mean I can have more than one dream? Wow. So I went back to him and I said, what's your offer? He said, here's my offer. I said, sold. And I can remember sitting at the table. Perry Dre was my lawyer's name. He was also one of my clients I would train. So even when I had my health clubs, I was still training people too. I had massive income coming in all different directions. And I picked up the pen and I got ready to sign the paperwork. And I literally started to get some tears in my eyes. And I put the pen down and I said, I don't know if I can do this. And the kid said, good God, really? Are you going to cry now? And my lawyer looked at me and he said, you don't have to sign that. We can get up and walk out of here right now. And then he looked at the kid and he goes, you have no idea what this woman has done to be successful. This woman has lived in that health club that's on Carlson Street, whatever. This woman has lived, eat, and breathed. Why do you think you want her club so bad? Because this woman has defied all odds. And I'm telling you what, if she doesn't want to sign this contract, she doesn't have to. And he looked at me and he says, let's go. And I said, no, I think I can do this.
Through that process, when you had started with absolutely nothing, right? A couple of mattresses in a one bedroom, just trying to get life started. At what point did you get in your businesses that you weren't having to worry about paying rent?
Where I didn't have to worry about paying rent? I've never not worried about paying rent. I don't care, and I think that's what keeps me so grounded. Is because I don't
Theresa.
care. I don't care how wealthy you get. You should always
sweat rent.
Yeah. You should always wonder not where the next dollar is going to come from or am I going to be able to pay rent next month? But because once you get to a certain point of wealth in your life, everything is paid off and you don't really have to worry anymore. But I still do. I always think, what if this happened and I had to start over? And I always tell people, I'm not scared to start over. If I had to go back and live in a 600 square foot apartment and drive a Volkswagen, I can do it. And I'll tell you, I don't know how many times when my son passed away, I would sit and pray to God, and I would say, you know what? You can have it all. I'll give it all back. I'll give it all to you. You can have it all. You can have the house and the cars. You can have it all. Just give me my son back. I'll start over. Just give me my son back.
Because starting over doesn't scare you. The work doesn't scare you.
Happiness is
the
what
rolling
matters.
at the sleeves.
Happiness is what matters. And I can be.
What gives you that happiness, Theresa? Is it always in the grind of something? Because that's a controllable thing for you, right? When you can put the work in, you've got the sleeve rolled up. That's the fulfillment for you is just the work.
I feel like that's really the only thing I have control of is my work. You know? I don't take for granted my health. Like, to me, my health is the most important thing. And back in my health club days, I saw obesity was at horrible rates then.
Yeah.
And I used to say, we've got to get a grip on it. And to this day, it's 10 times even worse now than it was 20 years ago. And I think through this whole pandemic and everything, it's come to make people realize how important your health is, how bad our society really is in bad health. It's kind of scary, but yeah. I just feel like I really work hard at having great health, and I really, like I said, I feel like the one and only thing I really have control of in my life is how hard I work at anything.
Yeah. I mean, people wake up and they're going to determine right then and there the level of effort they're going to put in their day, and they're going to own the results.
Like, somebody will tell me, "Oh, what'd you do today?" "Oh, I laid around and watched movies." What? How do you just lay around and watch movies? If I lay around and watch a movie, I immediately start thinking of everything I should be doing that I'm not getting done. Because when I lost my brother at 23, I was 27. When I lost my son in 2006, you start to realize you don't know. If God can take a 23-year-old and God can take a 19-year-old, what's to say He's not going to take you? Like, what makes you so special? Then I lost my real dad in 2010. I lost my stepdad last year in 2020. I've lost 4 very important people in my life. So I wake up every day and I, first of all, thank God that I'm still here and that I'm still allowed to continue to try to work my ass off to accomplish what I feel that either I or God above wants me to do. And then, and my assistant can vouch for this, I don't let the grass grow under my feet. I mean, like, I probably get more done in my pajamas before noon than most people get done in a week.
True story? I heard a quote, and it was great. No games have ever been won from the sidelines.
True.
But it's funny how people seem, the critics are always the one on the sidelines.
Right.
Never on the field playing.
No.
I never hear people complain when they're on the field, right?
Oh, no.
You're in action mode.
Oh, right.
Right.
And they're trying. The people on the sidelines are watching and criticizing. And that's where we come back to social media. I always tell people, all of those 10-foot tall bulletproof keyboard ninjas out there, it's so easy to sit on the sidelines and make sarcastic remarks
and assumptions.
But why don't you get in the game? Get in the game and compete against me, and then we'll talk.
So you've got this incredible closet. That you've been featured on Good Morning America about. Where did the idea of this, did this house come with this closet?
No.
Okay, so where did this idea even come from? Because this, number one, it's cool. Number two, like, that is hearing your story, I'm not surprised because you had an end goal for this thing. But the concept or idea of building this closet, where did that even come from?
Well, probably for about, I don't know, even when I didn't really have a lot of money, I always thought a closet, it was kind of like, you know how guys will, their car is a direct reflection of who they are.
Right.
I kind of always felt like a closet is a direct reflection of what a woman is. Okay.
Yeah.
So I've always been this clean freak. I've always had kept my house clean. Everything's always been meticulous and pretty. But I always took it a step farther and made sure my closets were too. Not to me, a closet wasn't something you just threw crap in, shut the door, and hope the door never came open.
It's an experience.
Right. And so regardless of how big my closet was, it was always pretty and cute and had pretty stuff in it, you know. And because I always had to wear hand-me-downs as a little kid, as soon as I could start buying my own clothes, I went hog heaven. Like, so I've always treated myself. It was like, okay, I work hard, I can treat myself to something nice. So it seemed like and I've always been a fundraising person. I've always had charity events at my house and everything. It seemed like every time women would come to my house, regardless of where I lived, for an event, they would get their glass of champagne and say, "Can we go see your closet?"
Even before you had this closet?
Oh, yeah.
Really?
Because I've always had pretty closets. And so even if it was a 4 foot by 4 foot closet, we'd sit on the floor and we'd look at, oh, where'd you get that purse? And, oh, that's a cute outfit. Because girls like to talk about that kind of thing. And so with every house, the closets always seemed to get bigger and bigger and prettier. And when I got ready to do this house, I bought this house. I didn't like anything about the house other than the size of it.
Just gut it out. We're going to start over.
I did. And I did. So I started out with a 14,000 square foot house, gutted it down to the 2x4s and the concrete floors and started over. And when I did that, because it was very traditional, very boring, very ugly. And I thought to myself, if I never get to live in California again, I'm going to bring California here. And I had this vision of this very California, Beverly Hills looking home, which I'd never seen in Texas. So I wanted to create it. So in the process of doing that, I said, you know, I've been in some homes where there's been like 2-story closets, but it's been like a little closet down here, go up this little tiny spiral staircase, and there might be a couple shelves up there, and that's it. And I said, you know, the girls are always wanting to be in the closet. I said, why not build a closet? You know, there's things called man caves where men get to have TVs and they're man caves, right? So why can't a woman have not a she cave, but just an area where her and her girlfriends can gather, you know? So I got with my interior decorator guy here in Houston, and I said, why can't I do a she cave kind of thing, you know? I said, that's where the girls want to be anyways. So I said, I want a champagne bar, I want a TV, I just want it to be just this beautiful place where I can have the fundraising events in the closet. And he said, so doable. So I got with the construction guys, and we figured out, you know, can we break through the floor here, and can we make it happen? And yeah, sure enough, we can make it happen. So to me, it's just a venue, a fundraising venue. It's the closet that continually gives back, because I can put about 100 women in my closet.
No kidding. Wow.
So, and it was never intended for the public to ever see it. Like when I did
it's just your girls, your friends.
And so when I did it, I said, because I'm all about finding out different ways to raise money for different charities. And so I said, nobody's ever going to see this unless they pay the ticket price for the event to come see it.
Right.
It's going to be $100 a ticket. You're going to get to come to the fundraising event, drink champagne, get your pictures taken in the world's largest closet. You know, I didn't label it that. Good Morning America labeled that. I just said it was big closet. And so, but my personal shopper that I have at Neiman Marcus, I would send him pictures all the time. And he'd be like, this is so cool. It looks like a little Neiman Marcus. And I'm like, I know, right? It's so cute. And then he said, well, Neiman Marcus wants to do a story about it. And I'm like, where's this story going to be seen? And he said, we have a blog. And I'm like, how am I a Neiman Marcus girl and I've never heard that you have a Neiman Marcus blog? So I said, well, and that's when I gave him permission to do it. I thought, well, if I don't even know there's a blog, there's probably not very many people will. okay, it's not going to get out too much. Wrong. It went from the Neiman Marcus blog to Culture Map to ABC News to Good Morning America, and it just it snowballed.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always, and people are like, well, what's it like to be known to have the world's largest closet? And I said, well, I didn't have to do a porno. I'd rather be known for the world's largest closet than having to do a porno like, some other famous people have done. So I guess if I'm going to go down in the history books.
Yeah, not a bad way to go.
Right.
So through your come up, and now with this lavish closet, and looking through your Instagram with the Bentleys and the Rolls, and like you've got these incredible cars and the jet and all the things that happen in life for you at this point. This come up has been just a grind all the way through.
Mm-hmm. And I still grind.
Right.
And these women, country club members, whatever, they look at me and they're like, why? What are you doing? Like
why still continue?
Why aren't you like us? Why aren't you just playing golf and going to the country club for lunch? And I'm like, boring. There's just so much more of me to give in this life. Like, no.
When you were coming through, when you were coming up, what was that first cool gift or thing you did for yourself that like you had a little bit of cash and you're like...
My first Louis Vuitton purse.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Had you seen it, been eyeballing it, going, I'm going to get that one of these days? How'd that feel?
And I'd been buying nice shoes and stuff like that. But to me, the ultimate was to finally get my first luxury bag. It was like all my years of work, all the hardships, all the tears, all the sleepless nights, never knowing if, because on the journey, you never know. You don't have a blueprint. You don't have a roadmap. You don't know. All you're doing is just getting up every day and trying.
What do you think people get wrong about you?
Everything. They don't know the hardships that I've endured. They don't have a clue, because I think they see what they want to see now.
Right.
Which what they see now is nothing compared to what I've been through. When you've looked down in a casket and seen your only son, it doesn't get much worse than that.
Yeah.
And it was, and you never love, I don't know if you're a father or not.
I have 3 kids.
Okay. You don't ever want to say that you love one of your kids more than the other ones or anything, because you want everybody to feel like they're equally loved and everything. But one of your kids tends to sometimes pull at your heartstrings a little more than another one. Yeah. And you don't know why. I could be in a store and my daughter would come up to me and say, Mom, can I have this? And I'd be like, no, put it back. And my son would come up to me, Mom, can I have this? Okay. I couldn't explain it.
That is very true.
No, but I could not explain it. I just, for some reason, I remember we were divorced and we were switching kids for the weekends and stuff, right? And I was in this car and I just dropped him off with their dad and I was pulling away and I could hear something and I looked in my rearview mirror and my son was running after me. And I stopped the car real fast and I got out and I said, "What's wrong, baby?" And he said, "Here." And he reached in his pocket and he pulled out this picture of him with a piece of watermelon and he said, "Here, I just want you to have this picture so you don't forget what I look like." And I'm like, oh my God.
They know how to do that.
Right?
Yeah.
But I was just like, he just pulled at my heartstrings in a way that cannot be explained. And I try to even tell my daughter to this day, I don't know how that happened. I don't know why. It's not like he was my favorite. I mean, like, I loved my kids equally, but
there was just something.
When he died in that car accident and I got to go to the funeral home and see him for the first time and he was still bloodied and everything, and I just grabbed him and hugged him and cried, and for a split second I literally wanted to get in the car, the rental car, and go crash it into a tree and die too, because the pain was so intense. It was like a pain I'd never felt. And I remembered the pain I felt when my brother died. But this pain was just, it was taking my breath away. I couldn't even breathe.
Yeah.
And the only thing that stopped me was I looked down towards my son's feet, and my daughter was hugging his legs, crying just as bad as I was. And I thought to myself, I can't be so selfish as to have my daughter lose her brother and her mother at the same time. I can't do that.
This is getting me right now, Theresa.
I can't do that.
Being a dad with 3 kids, I mean, you face what every parent fears the most. We want to outlive our kids, you know?
And I just thought, I can't be that selfish. I can't do that to her.
Mm-hmm.
And the pain was just...
How'd you get through that period?
And I came back to Houston, and I was doing dual careers still. I was a regional district supervisor for Ballet Total Fitness, and I was also doing real estate as a real estate agent. But I came back to Houston, and I went back to work like the next day, and people at work were like, "What are you doing here?" And I'd be like, "I don't know."
That's your control.
Where am I supposed to be?
Yeah.
If I sit at home, all I do is cry.
Right.
At least if I come here, I can try to keep my mind off it. And it was hard. Like I'd be standing in front of 100 employees having a meeting and just burst into tears for no reason, have to leave the room, go into the bathroom, bawl it out for a minute, come back, and it just, and I'd take another week off from work and try to, they'd be like, you just need to go home. I don't want to go home. What am I going to do at home? Cry? So once again, work became my go-to, It was the one thing I could control, I guess.
My wife did the same thing recently. She lost her brother, and she went out to go visit. This was in California, and she came back and went right back to work.
Mm-hmm. Well, because you got to think, if you sit at home, what are you thinking about?
You just recycle that thought process. You kind of create this vortex of depression.
Yeah. And I can remember the doctor saying, we're going to put you on some antidepressants. And I said, for what? So that I can be numb for the next few months or years. Mm-hmm. And then when I want to come off those antidepressants, I'm going to have to really face reality then. So what you're trying to tell me is I'm going to prolong reality. I said, no, thank you. I'd rather face reality right now, as bad as it hurts, and get through it than to wake up 10 years from now and then have to face reality.
Mm-hmm. You're a practitioner of life. That's what you are.
Really?
As much as you dream, your dreams are that goal that you put in the crosshair, but then you get in the weeds and you work.
Yeah.
Like there are people that are idealists. There are people that are the dreamers. They don't know how to follow through. Right. You are the one, you're the practitioner. Like you're the one that will turn the nut to the bolt. Mm-hmm. You'll figure out a way. You're figure-outable.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
For people that might find themselves in that depressive rut through a tragic event in life, and 2020 certainly created a spiraling event of a lot of just unknowns for people. Record number of suicides going on right now, even within kids, where they're isolated. People are isolated. They're working from home. The companies are funding a benefit. Like we're human nature. We want to belong to a tribe. That's that village tendency, right? And so we're now kind of being forced out of that.
Yeah.
And that goes against our primal instinct. For you as a practitioner, even I'm not going to take antidepressants. I'm just going to work my way through it because that's your controlling mechanism, right? What kind of advice would you give to somebody who's finding themselves right now in the spiral of unknown depression? They're afraid of everything. They're afraid of what to do. You faced this several times in life, and you found a way to at least just take one step, just start doing something.
Well, I'll give you an example. I've been keynote speakers for a lot of grief conferences, and one grief conference where I was a keynote speaker, the MC came up to me as soon as I got there, and he's like, "Oh my God, you're Theresa Roemer. I've been so excited to meet you and everything." And I'm like, "Really? Okay." And he says, "Well, we've got some time to talk and everything before you go up on stage." So we went off to the side and we visited and everything, and he proceeded to tell me that he'd just lost his daughter a few months ago, his only daughter. And so we talked about everything. His only daughter, I should say it's only child. But anyways, I got up on stage and I started to talk. And people are always like, their one thing they want to know is, well, how'd you get through it? Mm-hmm. And so I'm standing up on stage and I'm talking and everything, and I'm telling my story and we're going through everything. And then I said, little do most of you know that our MC to my right also has an amazing story. I said, most of you don't realize that just a few months ago, he lost his only child in a car accident. He'll never get to know what it's like to experience a child's graduation, a child's wedding, having grandchildren, like none of that. I said, but I can't stand up here and feel sorry for myself. And you want to know why? Because I at least, even though I've lost a son, I still have a daughter sitting right here in front of me that has blessed me with 2 grandchildren, 2 twins, 2 grandboys. I'm experiencing something he will never experience. So how can I possibly feel sorry for myself when we really should be feeling sorry for him? So I said, when you go to feel sorry for yourself, you need to stop and realize there's always someone that has it worse than you do. Always. Always. And I don't care if you think you're experiencing the worst of the worst of the worst. There is somebody out there that's experiencing it tenfold more worse than you are. Mm-hmm. So pull on your big girl panties, pull on the bootstraps, and get on with life. Because guess what? This is the one and only life you are given. This is not a dress rehearsal. This is the real deal. And for every moment and every day that you waste feeling sorry for yourself, you're wasting precious time that you can't get back. Mm-hmm. And guess what? The clock is ticking. So it doesn't matter what you've been through this past year. Fear can kill people. Fear can kill you faster than a virus or anything. Mm-hmm. Fear.
You can be afraid of something so much, and that's all you focus on. You can end up getting sick of the thing you're fearful of the most.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And so something I've tried to practice this past year is to not be scared, get on with life, still stick to my schedules and my routines every day, get out there, take walks, get out there, breathe the fresh air, take your supplements, work out, just, because, someone's like, well, okay, you don't have feelings for us because we've lost our parent to COVID or whatever. Okay, I've lost a brother, a son, and both my dads. I know what death is like. Mm-hmm. They might not have died from COVID, but I still lost them. So
you still have to live.
You still have to live. Mm-hmm. And if you choose not to, I guess that's your choice. But I'm not going to waste 1 second of my precious life that I have here on this earth to sit around and feel sorry for myself. Mm-hmm.
I learned, it was in my 20s, I dealt with some significant losses in my life at that point. And I was found myself caught up in this depressive spiral. And why me? And why am I losing all these people? This kind of thing. And my dad told me, he goes, the best way to get out of this, get your eyes off yourself and go help somebody else.
Exactly.
That was one of the most practical things that my dad could have ever taught me. Because when you go through struggle, it sucks. I mean, you're present. It's painful, whether it be career, relationship, money, a person in your life, whatever. But the more you focus on yourself, the more you're just going to wallow and you're just going to sink deeper and deeper. You help somebody else.
I asked those questions when my son first died. I asked myself, why? Mm-hmm. He was only 19. He was just getting started in life. He had so much to live for. He he was so amazing. He was so like, why? And no matter how much I sat there and asked why, I was never going to get the answer. Like, was God going to come down and personally talk to me? No. Like, and every time I go to church, every Saturday night, I still walk into the church and I cry. And I always say to my husband, is there ever going to be a day I quit crying in church? And he's like, no, because you really feel your son here. Like, this, but it's like you can't just sit around and ask why. I finally had to come to the conclusion, I will get the answer when I arrive.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't make sense to me now. It may never make sense to me. But when I get up there, it will finally make sense. And sometimes, you know what, I actually am very envious that he was so special that he was able to get his work on this earth done in 19 years. And I'm still trying to figure out how to get it done.
And I think that's it. I mean, did it take you a while to come up to that kind of approach to that?
Yeah. It doesn't. And what's weird is at my son's funeral, this woman came up to me, and she'd lost her daughter a couple years prior to that. And she was so happy. And she was so at peace with losing her daughter. And I kept thinking, man, you must not have loved your kid. That's all I could think of was you must not have loved her, because how can you be so happy? But she was like, oh, she's in such a better place. And, I mean, she was just talking. And now I'm in that place, But I can remember for a few years, I remember that first year, my husband, I don't know, I was doing something, and he said to me in a joking way, but I didn't take it jokingly. He said, where did Theresa go? I wish we'd get Theresa back. And I got mad at him, and I'm like, I have no idea where she went. And I don't know if she's ever coming back, because I don't even know who this person is anymore. And it was really weird, because the first few years, you don't know who you are. You're depressed. You're scared. You're crying all the time. I mean, like, you're just... And I can remember one time, I was shortly after my son died, I was in Dallas with a girlfriend, and it was a girls' weekend, and we were drinking wine, and I said to her, I said, I don't even know who I am anymore, Brenda. Like, am I ever going to be good old Theresa again? And she's like, maybe not. Maybe this is who God wants you to be now. But I'll love you anyways.
Mm-hmm.
And then about a year later, we were playing in a golf tournament together, and that night we were sitting there drinking wine out by the pool, and she said, guess what, Theresa? I saw a little bit of the old Theresa today when you were giving crap to that caddy. And I said, really? You think she's coming back? And she's like, she'll be back, don't worry. But it's a scary feeling when you suddenly become somebody you don't know. Like, it was like, who is this person? But it takes a few years, and I try to tell people and other friends of mine that have lost their kids and stuff. I'm always like, that first year is a blur.
Yeah.
The second year is the worst. When reality hits in, they're not away at college, they're not on vacation, they're gone.
There's no more. This time last year, we were
where it was just like, because that first year you're just a blur. You're in so much pain, you're crying all the time. It's just blur. Second year's reality. It's very painful. Third year's still painful, getting a little better, but still painful. Fourth year's getting a little less, but it's a process. It's not, and for all of those people out there that have to do the antidepressants or the alcohol or whatever to numb themselves, that's their way of coping with it, I guess, but it was not going to be mine. I needed to hit it head on, deal with that reality, deal with that pain, and process it in a healthy way.
After taking some hits in my personal life, just growing up, being an adult, and, making strides and then taking a few setbacks, it's just this back and forth ebb and flow. I always took it as a test. This is testing me. Testing me to figure out, how am I going to get through this? Because if I don't, I'm going to end up where I don't want to be. Right. And that's not the outcome I want.
Right.
So I need to lean into this. Right. I've got to take this and go. And I heard Ed Milet say this, and it really hit. I've heard it said in different ways over the years, but I think you've probably heard something similar, maybe the same thing. But he said, life doesn't happen to you, it happens for you. Right. But it takes a while to get that self-awareness, I think, at that point.
Yeah.
I'm 47.
Yeah.
I think 40s have been the best decade of my life because you take
40s were great
because you took the 20s and the 30s, the mistakes, the efforts, the pains, and then 40s.
You finally feel like you're getting it. Like, okay,
you do.
Okay, I got it now. Okay.
Yeah. When you start to gain the self-awareness and you get out of pity, you get out of victimization, you start to have a little bit more wisdom to know how to get through things. And you've also got a better circle around you, right?
Right.
I by default, we kind of keep the circle that's familiar versus what's really good for us.
Right.
Right. In your level of success now, financially, in business, and your drive, and you've got a lot of things going. I personally have two questions that I'm sure that other people may even be curious about. Is number one, how do you grow a great marriage when you both are driven in so much business and you have so many irons in the fire? How do you cultivate that marriage to where you have that support system and you're both there for each other the way that you need? Because a lot of people, I think, struggle with the balance of that relationship because they're either all in one and not the other. And when you're making significant strides in business, especially, you have to be very present and you have to be very dedicated to that cause, right?
Right.
So in a very practical way, which you're a very practical person, how do you and your husband do that?
Well, first of all, it's finding the right partner because
Yeah.
God knows, I've been married and divorced twice before. I stayed single for 16 years during my health club days and all that stuff. I guess just being headstrong and being a strong woman and being a competitor, I probably wasn't the funnest person to be around maybe, because like when you first start a business, it's like starting with an infant.
Yeah.
I always say the startup of a business is like having an infant. It needs 24/7. You can't take your eyes off it. You got to live, eat, and breathe it. You got to nourish it. It's your baby. You finally want to get that business into a toddler stage, and then adolescence age, and then
That's a great analogy.
So I always say owning a business or starting a business is like raising children. And so when I started my health clubs and everything, it was 24/7. I lived, eat, breathed it. And then now I'm a competitor on top of that. Oof. Now I'm live, eat, and breathing.
You literally lived in the gym.
Literally. And I did in the back. But, you're eating, you couldn't go to movies. You couldn't drink. You couldn't eat certain foods. You can't go out. You can't party. I mean, so I probably wasn't the most fun person in the world. But it was funny because when I met my husband that I have now, we met in church. Down at Second Baptist. And
really?
Yeah, I had no intentions or desires to ever be married again, ever. I was successful. I didn't need a man. I'll have a boy toy on the side if I want one, but I didn't, because my mother also taught us and raised us to believe that you will have a man in your life because you want them in your life, not because you need them in your life. My graduation present was a set of luggage and a toolbox. People were like, why are you getting tools? Because my father would always make sure that we knew how to take care of ourselves. I knew how to change the oil on my car at 16. He's like, you don't need to depend on a man to do this. You can do it yourself. So when I met Lamar, and, here's this headstrong, successful woman that kicks him into the curb, or to the side. She doesn't need him, I mean, like, I would even take girlfriends on vacations because I was like, I don't need to take a guy. He's going to want to take all my time, You ever, I don't know, you probably remember your days of dating, but you ever remember dating somebody and you'd take them somewhere and 5 minutes after you were there, they're like, can we leave now? I'm bored.
I actually walked out on a couple of dates because I realized it was just not going anywhere.
Yeah, you're like, dude, I brought you to this gala. The least you could do is sit here and keep your mouth shut for an hour.
Act like you enjoy it.
Right. So I got to the point where I was always taking girlfriends with me to events and vacations and all that kind of stuff because I was like, I don't have time for a whiny ass man. Like, I just don't. Like, I'm sorry. So when I met Lamar, first I thought he was a player, but then I was told he was the most eligible bachelor in Houston. So I was like, I wasn't sure, And the night that I met him in church, he literally stood there, sat there, talked to me, held my hand, then told me he was leaving to go on a date with another woman. So then I was like, oh, he is a player. Okay. But then he was like, no, I'm a man of my word. I had this date before I met you, but I want to date you. I was like, bye-bye. I don't have time for you. But what I liked most about him was he was a man of his word, and he was godly. And back when I was single, it was like I could never find the right man. Like I wanted someone godly, and if I found someone godly, he was dead broke. You know, and if I met someone wealthier, he wasn't godly, or he treated you like crap. You know, I was always like, if I could just take like 8 different guys, put them together, I'd have the perfect guy. Mm-hmm. But I can't, so I don't need to look. And when I met Lamar, it was like all the boxes checked. It was weird. But what I love about my relationship and my marriage with Lamar is I'm a firm believer in you have to have your life, he has to have his life, and then you have to have our life. And it works with Lamar and I because he's very much a go-getter and does what he does best. I'm a go-getter and I do what I do best, and yet we are together also. He's the first man I've ever met in my entire life that doesn't have to call on me and check where I'm at all the time, you know, like a lot of jealous husbands or jealous wives do, you know, doesn't care what's in my purse, doesn't care what's on my phone. I mean, like he just, you know, and I can remember one time sitting on his lap and I said, you know what, I just want to thank you for letting me be me. And he said, like, I'm going to be able to stop you. I was like, yes. But he said, you know, what I like about you, Theresa, is you're strong where I'm weak. And I'm like, wow. So I always think of, I'm like that helium balloon that's wanting to be up there, you know. Yeah. And Lamar's always like grabbing on to my feet and pulling me back down. And keeping me grounded. Yeah. But he's never said no to me. He's never told me that I shouldn't do something. He lets me, if I have an idea, he lets me do it, try it, whatever. He never comes back and says, oh, I told you that wasn't going to work. Mm-hmm. You know, I mean, he's in oil, right? So he's drilled plenty of dry holes. So you could consider a dry hole a mistake or failure? No. Right. You just go, okay, let's plug it. Let's move on to the next one, you know? Mm-hmm. And so he understands that not everything is going to be 100% all the time, or that not everything's going to work out. There's going to be some failures. There's going to be some dry holes. There's going to be this. But, yeah, I mean, like, just...
I think the greatest relationships are born from, and I think it's a fantasy that came from the movie Jerry Maguire. Remember this?
Mm-hmm.
You complete me.
You had me at hello,
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And you complete me.
Yeah.
And I think that's where a lot of people set up their relationships to almost failure up front, because you were complete before you met Lamar.
Totally.
And I think that's where people miss it. They're looking for the other person to be that missing link when you're expecting somebody else to fulfill something that you must fulfill within yourself.
Well, and I always say that's why happiness comes from within. And there's so many people out there that are chasing after happiness. Oh, he's going to make me happy. Mm-hmm. Oh, she's going to make me happy. Oh, this is what's going to make me happy.
If I get $1 million, I'll be happy.
Right. No, happiness starts from within. You have to be happy in here yourself before...
I couldn't agree more.
You can make anybody else happy. I mean, like, and then, like you said, that's where failure starts from ground zero, is when people think, oh, if I just get with that person, then I'm going to be happy. No. Mm-hmm. Chances are you're not. Because if you expect that person to complete you, they're probably not. They're, you know, you have to be happy and complete before you can make someone else happy and complete.
Mm-hmm. Choice, you know, happiness has been, people seem to chase and they do things that make them happy. Like, I'm going to do this because it makes me, I'm going to do this because it's my passion. When, you know, I've met people that were a janitor and they were extremely passionate about what they did. Mm-hmm. And it came down to a choice, not waiting on conditions to be right to find happiness, but choosing happiness regardless of your conditions. Because again, removing yourself from a position of being a victim of circumstance is that you, by choosing to not be a victim anymore, means you're taking control of your life and no longer allowing conditions to control your happiness, because you're going to say, this sucks, but I'm still going to choose to find happiness as a result.
And I'm going to share an example with you. My daughter was born 22 months after my son, and my mother had come from the town that she lived in to help me when I got home from the hospital, because I got a 22-month-old and a newborn, right? So
Hands were full.
Huh?
Hands were full.
Yeah. And a husband that works night shifts, right? So so my mother came and everything. Well, my in-laws came, and they wanted to, that weekend, and they wanted to see the first granddaughter. She was the first granddaughter. Everybody was so happy. My mom's watching all this unfold and everything. So they leave. They go back to their town. And so that night, got all the kids bathed, everybody in bed and everything. And my mom went to bed. I went to bed. And then about an hour into the night, I wasn't even asleep yet, I heard the door close in a car. And I thought, oh, she probably need to run to the corner store for something. Now, mind you, I've spent my entire life being verbally abused, mentally abused, head games, and physically abused. Now, I'm 20, at this point, I'm 27, okay? Brother hadn't died yet. And I don't ever hear her come back. And I'm like, now this is weird, you know? So I get out of bed, I go out to the kitchen, and there's this note laying on the counter that said, I'm so happy for you. Your life seems so complete now. There just doesn't really seem to be any room for me anymore, so I'm going to drive my car off a cliff and die. So you got to remember, this is in the 80s, so there was this bag cell phone.
Oh, yeah.
Once
Remember
again,
those.
aging myself. So my mother had one of those. So I'm calling her nonstop. I am crying my eyes out. Okay, I'm hormonal. I've got a newborn. Now I'm not getting any sleep. It's all night long. I'm up trying to call her. No answer. All I can picture, she's driven the car off the cliff. The next day, about 10 a.m., after I've had no sleep all night long, dealing with 2 little kids, she answers her house phone. I said, what are you doing? She said, I'm working in my rose garden. And I said, you bitch. How dare you? I said, I'm going to tell you right now, if you want to kill yourself, I need you to go do it right now so that I can bury you and I can grieve, but I can get on with life. But if you're not, I don't want to ever hear a word out of your mouth and of this mental game that you want to play. I said, I'm not 5 years old anymore. I'm a grown-ass woman with 2 children, and I am not going to be manipulated and played with anymore. And I hung up the phone. My sister called me. Of course, my mom had to call my sister. My sister calls me. She's like, oh, how did you talk to mom like that? I said, because I'm done. I can't do this anymore. There comes a point in your life where you have to stop the insanity. And I chose that night or that morning to stop it. Mm-hmm. I am not 5 years old. You cannot do this to me anymore. So as an adult through life after that, there was some mind game crap that went on. But when about 6-7 years ago, when she pulled that crap and told me that I was dead, you know, I was like, be careful what you wish for. So I literally haven't had a relationship with my mother for the past 6-7 years because of that night. And about, I don't know, 3 or 4 months ago, she was coming through town and she called. Now, most of the time I refused to answer the phone. I was like, no, you wished me dead.
Yeah.
You hurt me so bad that night when you said that I felt like I buried her that night. And so she came through town. I allowed her to come see me. And she said, well, on the phone, she said, I want to come see you. And I said, why do you want to visit a dead person? She said, can't we just let bygones be bygones and get along? And I was like, and I saw her and I had no emotion. And it was really sad, really sad. But I said to my sister, I think because she hurt me, it was like the ultimate hurt that night when she wished me dead.
You never want to drive people that care to the point that they no longer do. Right? Mm-hmm. Happens a lot. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately.
And I really, it's almost like I want to ask a therapist, what happened? How do I not have any feelings for her anymore? But I think because I cried so bad that night when she did that to me, I think I literally buried her that night, you know, because I've said to my sister, I said, I don't even know if you ever call me and tell me that she's dying or if she's passed, if I'll have any feelings. I don't know now.
Yeah. As you've come through life, Teresa, I'm sorry, the people that you keep with you, because I'm sure as you've gotten more success, and there are leeches that want to connect and get a piece of that, whether it be for optics or braggability or an opportunity. People can be opportunists. It's ridiculous.
Oh, and everybody wants to work with you because they know you have a bank account. And they want to get in there and rip you off too.
Is that tough? Because I mean, from as a human, you want to be genuine.
Yeah, but here's, I always used to say when I had my health clubs, do what you do best and hire out the rest. Mm. So one thing my mother used to teach me was, I understand you don't like office work, but your bookkeeper can steal you blind. Mm. So even though you don't like being in the office and you'd rather be out on the floor with your clients and your members and everything, you need to spend at least an hour a week with the bookkeeper going over the books so that you know what's going on, which was good advice. But once again, I always said, do what you do best and hire out the rest. But you still got to keep your nose in some of it so that you don't get robbed blind, because bookkeepers can do that. CPAs can do that. But unfortunately, over the years, because like when my closet became famous, suddenly it was like, oh, you need PR to handle all this that's coming at you, because every magazine wanted to interview me. Well, I hired a PR firm because I was like, I don't know anything about PR. Well, PR firms are the biggest ripoffs. And if I'm hurting somebody's feelings by saying that, I'm sorry, but I've gone through 3 PR firms and all 3 of them sucked. And they wanted to work with me because, she's got money.
Right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And because you don't know that, what they're trying to do for you or supposed to be doing for you, you just keep letting them do it. And then 1 or 2 years later, you're out this much money and nothing's happened. You're like, wow, now I need to fire them, But yeah, it's hard. It's hard to, especially when you don't know much about the field that you're needing to hire them for. Mm-hmm. It's hard to trust and know.
When it comes to your friendship circle, because
very tiny.
And I took this in life. It was my grandfather gave me this nugget, and he goes, "You're gonna be, your example, your reputation is gonna be based on literally the 5-6 people you keep close, right? So you need to be careful who you have in your life, because they're also influencing you. So you have to make sure that those voices, those standards are influencing you in the right direction.
Right.
So with your personal, with your crew, how long have they been in your life? I mean, are you ever open to somebody new, or is it takes years to be able to get into?
No, I mean, I'm always open to new friendships. I mean, because you never know what that person's going to bring to the table.
Right.
I always used to, I still say it. If you're in the room and you're the smartest person in the room, get the hell out of that room. You don't ever want to be the smartest person in the room. You want to be in a room where you're the dumbest, because the amount of information you're going to be able to soak up from all of those. So I'm always open to friendships and people, because I just met you. And I think just by knowing you, I can learn so much from you.
Likewise.
So,
Yeah.
So, but it only takes me a few minutes to find out if somebody that I'm around or with is full of crap.
There's a thing.
And they're full of hot air, and now you're wasting my time. It's like I can pick and choose who I want to spend my time with, and I choose to spend time with people much more knowledgeable than me or much more successful than me. I don't want to be the smartest person in the room.
So you mentioned you went to go meet with Damon Johns.
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. Where you are right now in your life, who's somebody that is kind of that beacon for you going, I see what they did. Nobody?
I look at people that have done amazing things with their life. Look, Oprah Winfrey. Mm-hmm. I can remember laying on a Chase lounge, suntanning in the sun, watching her on TV when she had her talk show, when she was ultra heavy and big poofy afro, Yeah. Phil Donahue. I mean, I can remember, Michael Jordan. I mean, I can look at people that have done amazing things with their life, but I can't ever say that there's one specific person that has really done it for me, or that I feel like has been my mentor. Because I get asked that all the time. Oh, who's been your mentor, or who's the one person you looked up to the most? I'm like, there's been a lot. Like I take little nuggets from everybody. Does that make sense?
100%.
Instead of just having one person on the pedestal, I have lots. I pay attention. I pay attention to what successful people do.
So that being said, for you being a successful individual and you're always keeping your nose to the grind, the thing that I found with people of success, especially people that have, through that journey of success have also attained great wealth, there are some commonalities, and it comes down to success is always in the details, right? The little things you do that most people overlook. Most people expect like the big grandiose gesture, the big grandiose opportunity. They're missing the little details that brought them to the point of being prepared for the bigger opportunity, the next step, right?
Right.
So in your life, clearly with as many things that you have going on, I can, and even with our text about the calendar, that's going to keep between you and I, is there's a system in place that you live your life by. When did you realize that you needed to have a system and a routine? And of that routine, how do you first start your day?
Well, and I think that routine comes from even back in my competitive days. Because you have to have a routine. Yeah.
That is so true.
And one of my routines is my health is of the utmost importance. So one of the first things I do every day is get some kind of a workout in. That starts my day. Because if you put it off, it never gets done.
Right.
And I've always said health is wealth.
Yeah.
If you don't have your health, so I think having a routine back in my competitive days, or even as a mother.
Right.
Sometimes as a mother, you have to have routines. Right. Back when I had 4 part-time jobs and 16 credit hours at school and 2 kids, you had to have a routine. Get up, wrap them in blankets, every day was the same thing. So I think routine and being consistent is the key to anything when it comes to success.
What time do you normally get up in the morning?
7.
Do you have an alarm, or do you wake up naturally at 7?
Naturally.
Yeah?
Yeah, and I think back in the days from always having to be up at 4 in the morning, I can remember when I did the 4 jobs and 16 credit hours, my mother would say, "You're never going to be able to keep this pace up forever." And I said, "Yes, I can."
It's almost challenging Theresa. That's what watch me.
And I'm telling you, when I finally, I kept that pace up my whole life until probably about 2002-ish. I was finally not getting up at 4 in the morning or 4:30 in the morning and getting everything done. I started actually sleeping until about 6. And I was like, wow. This is what it feels like to get an extra hour or 2 of sleep. Woohoo! But I never used to think bad about it. If my alarm went off at 4:30, I got out of bed, I got ready. You just do it. And I was never a morning person. I hated mornings. But when you have to do it, you get used to it. And you may not like it, but that's just the way of life.
As you're come up through business, at what point did you look and go, you know what, I'm going to put myself out there and I'm going to start crushing this social media thing? Like what spawned even creating the YouTube and really starting to, because a lot of people in business, they don't want optics. They don't want too many people seeing what they're doing. Right. But you leaned into a completely different direction, and you leaned into a sphere that most businesses don't want to go. Right. Well, but you did.
In 2000, well, so I've always been somebody that likes the camera. So when I owned my health clubs, I did all my own radio advertisements. I did all my own TV advertisements because nobody could do it better than me.
Okay, Mattress Mac. Yeah, okay.
And then being a competitor, I was always on stage, half naked, and I loved it. I loved entertaining. I loved being out there, so I was never afraid of being out there. And then, so I won the U.S. Open at the age of 40, competing against people who are 23, 24, 25.
Yeah.
did it. And I always said I would take my bodybuilding career as far as I could take it on my God-given talents and abilities. And the day that I would have to step into drugs, I would be done because I wasn't going to do it. So at 40, I won my pro card. I said, I'm done.
You got the pro card and tapped out.
Well, because it was like, I'm going to stand on stage next to Linda Murray. She's like 5 times as big as me. You know, she's got a back the size of a man. I'm not going to do drugs and compete against that. I'm not going to do it because I didn't know what those drugs would do to me long term. Well, I want to live in the moment and see what the drugs are going to do for me right now. But what's my body? What are those drugs going to do to my body 5, 10, 15 years later?
Right.
Suddenly it became, I don't really care about as much of what I look like. I want to live longer, healthier. I don't know. Sometimes it takes a person a while to get to that point. You know, we all want to look good. Ooh, I want to look good in a swimsuit. Ooh, I want to look good. Ooh, it's all about, how good do I look? And then it comes to a point where, okay, I just want to look good, but I really want to live longer, healthier. So I'm trying to remember where I was going with this story.
And I think also too that it's part of that level of discipline because it's something it's a control mechanism in life. Right.
So now let's fast forward to 2010. I become Mrs. Texas. I get the Mrs. Texas title. I'm the oldest woman to ever get the Mrs. Texas title. But I remember some stuff getting written about me and some comments that were not so nice. And I had this person say to me, you better get some thick skin. And I'm like, why? And they're like, if you're going to put yourself out there like this, you need to not care what people say about you. You need to get some thick skin. Yeah. Because not only had I just become Mrs. Texas, I was competing for Mrs. America, but also my first book was coming out. We'd gotten some other products out. So like I was really getting out there. So, but he said, if you can't handle it now, what's it going to be like later when you're even more famous? So I was like, you're right. You know, you're right. And so over the next course of a few years, started working with production companies, was getting my own TV show and all this kind of stuff, had a stepson do some evil stuff, had to get a restraining order, lost the TV show. But during this whole time, working with different PR companies and different media companies, they were like, Theresa, your life is so amazing and so unreal. You need to be documenting this. This is just like you're living a life that most people wish they could live. You're funny, you do crazy stuff. Like you need to be documenting this. And I'm like, really? So instead of trying to go after a TV show that I lost, you should start a YouTube channel. Just document your life yourself. And I was like, okay. And now Mr. Fabulous laughs because we look back at some of that documentation that I did in the very beginning when I didn't know what I was doing and I was doing it all on a cell phone. Like, hey, look at me, I'm out running. You know? Yeah. And the whole clip was like a minute and 10 seconds. You know? Yeah. I was like, oh my God, I was so pathetic. But I was just, I think the company in New York was called Two Market Media. And they were just like, you got to document your life. You really do. And I was like, okay, I don't think anybody's going to like it, but okay, it's not that interesting. They're like, you don't think it's interesting, but it really is. So for the first few years, I just dabbled. I didn't know what I was doing. You know, like I said, a video was a minute, 10 seconds long. Yeah. Like, I can't even. And before I knew it, I had like 9,000 or 10,000 followers. I'm like, what are they following?
Right. Yeah.
My videos are a minute long, 2 minutes long. Like, can they possibly? And so I laughed because I don't even know if my closet was famous then. I can't even remember. I can't even remember what year I started my YouTube channel. But anyways, when I brought on Mr. Fabulous, my assistant, that's when I said to him, okay, for some ungodly reason, we got 10,000 followers. I don't know how that happened. And I'm getting a little tiny paycheck from them, from Google. I said, why don't we try to be consistent and put out some really cool content and see where this takes us, you know?
Now, for being Theresa Roemer and, starting into this content game, being self-published, and one of the greatest things I love about social media is because of the ability of putting your own narrative out. Nobody else is controlling you.
Right.
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 How did that, because we talked before the show and he worked for free for like a week. Right. And to at least prove after having PR companies and having those debacles and all this, you knew you didn't want to do it yourself, but yet how do you have somebody?
I didn't know how to do it. I didn't know how to edit videos. I could shoot the video from my phone or whatever. I could shoot it, but I didn't know how to edit it. Once again, do what you do best and hire out the rest. So I was like, I just need to find somebody that knows how to do it. And he had a great, from his social media, you could tell that he knew what he was doing. And so I was like, why not hire him to help me film and let him do the editing? Like, because that's what he's good at, even though he's a makeup artist too, you know? So I was like, do I want to waste my, it's kind of like hiring a housekeeper. Okay. I learned back in the day, okay, if it takes me 4 hours to clean my house, and what's my time worth? And I would always refer it back to as a personal trainer. What are you getting paid per hour as a personal trainer? I was making $125 an hour. Okay, so if it takes me 4 hours to clean my house,
right,
I could be training clients making money, or I could be losing money cleaning my own house. And a housekeeper's only going to charge me $100, maybe $100 for the day. Ooh, doesn't take a rocket science to figure out, let her clean the house, you stay out there and keep making more money.
Right.
So it was like, why do I want to learn how to edit and waste my time editing, because it takes time, when I could be doing something else that's going to be making me money?
What's the size of your team now?
Mr. Fabulous.
The ninjas, as I call them.
We keep trying to grow, and we need to grow. We do because sometimes after we've put in a hellacious day, we just look at each other and go, God, look what we did today. Like we need some help, you know? But like I said, even back in my health club days, it was like you go through 20, 30 bad employees before you finally find one good one. And it's like that now, you know? You try to find an older person and they're not as social media savvy, or you find the younger kid and they want the president title and the president pay, and yet they barely know how to wipe their butt. You know, you're just like, golly, you know. And I always say, God, if I could just duplicate myself 10, 15 times, I'd have the perfect staff. You know.
So you've got on Instagram nearly 300,000 followers, right? How many subscribers do you have on YouTube?
I think we're at 140,000.
Are you?
It was monumental when we got that.
Oh yeah,
that 100,000.
Yeah, that's like, yeah, we did it, right?
I know. And now you're like, now I got to get it to 1 million. Jeez. Yeah.
Well, in what that has done for you, I can only imagine, is when you create an audience, you create your own launch pad for whatever you do. Kind of like Dwayne Johnson, right? He's leveraged now the largest following of fan base worldwide. Yeah, launches tequila. That's why it became the greatest successful launch of any liquor was because of that.
It's like Kylie Jenner. You know. She created this amazing social media presence, and then she launched her lipsticks and everything. Well, how do you think she became so good at being a business person when she had, you got to have that base. And so I can remember back when I was supposed to have my first TV show back in 2012, they said, before this TV show airs, you need to make sure if there's any products or anything that you want out there, you need to get it out now before the show airs, because then once the show airs, the company is going to own some rights to all your stuff and all this kind of stuff. So I was like trying to get all my products out there, but yet I didn't have a fan base at that time. So to try to sell stuff without that fan base is hard when you don't have that following yet. Now I'm at a point where I've got the following and continuing to build that following, and now products sell because you get enough. And that's why I tell people all the time when I do coaching calls, I'm like, you don't need to spend thousands of dollars on marketing when you've got social media at your fingertips. Kylie Jenner built a $1 billion business off social media.
Time and energy. You don't have to pay to create an Instagram.
I can remember back in the day in my health clubs, I spent a fortune on TV ads and radio ads. A fortune, because that was the only way. We didn't have social media back then. Why would you spend money like that now when you've got social media for free?
So what's your opinion right now with the, everybody's talking about Amazon being too big, Google's got too much power, Facebook's got too much influence.
True.
I like on the one hand, as a consumer, I get it, where, you go to a website, and all of a sudden you could even mention something in a conversation and you see an ad for it pop up in your timeline. I partly
scary.
get that. But at the same time, if you love being able to, look at your phone and go, okay, so where's the nearest Starbucks near me? Are you really that concerned about privacy at that point?
I've never done that. I've never asked Siri where anything is. Because normally she's like, I can't understand you. I can't help you. I'm like, of course you can't, because your stupid phone.
But you know what I'm getting at? Like we because of the convenience.
Well, no, it's kind of like, be careful what you ask for. You want the convenience of technology. But then when technology starts to invade your private space, you get pissed. You're like, well, what do you think was going to happen? If we still all just had the flip phones, we would be...
Great phones, by the way.
I understand. Or the BlackBerry.
Oh, yeah.
I was a Crackberry addict forever. No, but I'm just like, if we would have just stayed with the flip phone or something like that, we wouldn't have all these issues.
But it's that once we get a taste, we want more, right? Once we get the appetizer, we want more, right? Once we get the free trial, we want more. That's why they have free trials. That's why they have
it's called instant gratification.
Yeah, it's kind of like all the motivational seminars I've been to in my lifetime, right? They promise to get the three ingredients to success. You get there, and you don't really get that, but you get the book pitch. You buy the book,
and I'm probably aging myself, but did you ever attend anything with Zig Ziglar?
Yes, sure did.
Probably. I would have to say, if you have ever asked me if somebody's ever put a spark under me or lit a fire in me, it would be him. Because I used to go to his seminars. I call them seminars. They were held in stadiums. Yeah. And there was always like 10 other speakers also. Yeah. But I lived for him. To this day, I think I've introduced Mr. Fabulous to a few of his things on the internet. But to me, he was probably one of the greatest motivational speakers ever to have lived.
Him and Les Brown, both very powerful.
Yeah, Zig Ziglar was my guy.
Well, Zig was a practitioner, right? He was about tactics. He wasn't about just theory.
No.
Because
I think that's why I relate so much with Zig.
100%. So what's next for you? You just launched a skincare line, correct?
We just launched a skincare line a little over 24 hours ago that's doing amazing. We're starting to write my autobiography.
Okay.
It's called From Milking Cows to Millionaire. That'll be out this year. We're working with a couple production companies on some shows. So just... can't reveal everything, but always working.
When for a lot of people, they look at somebody that's a millionaire and they think, man, that life must be amazing, right? Like all your problems are now solved because you have money. But it's like when you drive a car and every time you hit whether it be 10,000 miles, 20,000 miles, 100,000 miles, most of the time you never even notice. When you first became a millionaire, and you had those 7 figures in your bank account, did you ever notice? Were you just moving so fast? One day it was like, oh shit,
I don't think I was ever fixated on the number in the account or anything. I think I was just, because at that point I didn't have to work anymore, probably. But I immediately became a consultant, and I was hired to consult with a company in Jackson Hole, Wyoming. A health club that was in the red bad. And so I went there to consult with them, and they fell in love with me and asked me to become their GM and turn their club around. So I signed a contract with them saying I could turn their club around in 18 months, which I did. I didn't need to work, but I did. But after 18 months, I wanted to leave Jackson Hole. Even though
this was after the sale of your 5 gyms?
Yeah, and I was living the life in Jackson Hole. I was on private jets with clients. So I signed the agreement with them saying that after I consulted with them that I would run their gyms. But I also wanted my own personal training business called Phenomenal Physiques. And they were like, okay, no problem. So on the weekends, I was on private jets flying all over with clients as their personal trainer to Vegas or wherever the hell. Just all I had to do was just train them. trained Harrison Ford, Dick Cheney's entire team. Like, I was living the life. But I couldn't get a date to save my life, because at that time it was like either you dated a 23-year-old snowboarder with 10 roommates, or you were somebody's mistress. There was no happy in between, you know. So I went back to California, and then that's how Bally Total Fitness grabbed me. And I'm like, I don't need to work, but they were like, we've heard of you. You're a fixer. We need you on this team, you know. And so that's how I landed Bally Total Fitness. And so, like, once again, I've always had women say to me, but you don't need to work. Just let's go have coffee. Let's go have lunch. Let's drink. Let's gossip. But
you do.
And I'm like, boring. I like working. I just do.
Yeah.
Like I said, I think there's just so much of me that has yet to blossom.
It's like you feel like you're just getting started.
Yeah. I'm like, I took the U.S. Open at 40. Very late bloomer when it came to that. I was Mrs. Texas when I was 50. You know, pretty late to be in the game, you know, but I did it.
Yeah.
You know, so it's kind of like, I'm like, I still feel there's so much more of me that's yet hasn't been even tapped into.
You've diversified a lot, right, with your own businesses, your own brands. Do you get hit up by people a lot, like trying to get you to invest in their idea?
Always.
Yeah. Do you listen, or do you?
Not really.
Yeah.
No. Like,
it probably happens a lot.
Last night at dinner, somebody said, well, would you be an investor in a restaurant? I'm like, why would I invest in somebody else's restaurant? I have my own restaurant.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You know, I said I could be like Lisa Vanderpump, have my own restaurant and my own bar. You know, I'm like, I don't need to invest in somebody else's. You know, yeah, no.
So I have an uncle in the oil and gas industry out in California, and they do well.
Yeah.
You know, they fly private, and my wife and I got married at their vineyard, and it's incredible.
Right.
But just getting hit up by people all the time.
All the time.
And, you know, as an investor too, it's like there are probably, have you had a couple of wins that have been like, I'm glad I went through with that?
Yeah. And I don't want to say we don't invest in other people. I mean, like we've invested in, and both investments that we did with these people turned out bad. Lawsuits with them and everything else, you know. So, and you think at the time it's a good investment. You're like, okay, the return on the money. Okay, yeah, this is good. But
what did you, when you got the pitch, you heard all the information, did you really more so invest in the people or the idea?
Well, once again, they were friends.
I see.
So you're like, okay, they're friends. We've known them for a long time. Okay, let's do it. And now you're in lawsuits with them and don't even talk to them.
And now you lose the friendship.
Yeah. So you've
lost that optimism, and you want to help somebody build
and once
their
again,
dream.
you know, I call my husband the gentle giant too, because he's got a heart of gold too. So, you know, a lot of times when friends come to us and want us to invest, he's like, okay, you know.
And you're like, wait a minute.
I'm like, are you sure? Well, even the one last investment we did, I said at the time, I don't think it's a good idea, and so is saying don't do it. And he still went against my words and did it. So I kind of sometimes look at him and go, told you so.
So Theresa, you've got a lot going on. What is, you've got the autobiography in the works. You've got the skincare line that's going. You still have the apparel line, correct?
No, we phased out of the apparel line. We still have the candle line. And we still have 3 great selling books that I've done. Nude, Unveiling Your Inner Beauty and Sensuality. It's a self-help book. Naked in 30 Days, which is all about your health. And
I love the title. That's fantastic.
And I did stand naked in Times Square for the back cover of that book.
You did not?
Yes, I did.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
Well,
but, okay, so being in New York, did anybody even notice?
Well, it was kind of funny
because there's Naked Cowboy, right?
Well, it was kind of funny because when the publisher came to me and asked me to be the author of this book, I'm like, why are you picking me? And they're like, we've done our homework, and we think you're the best person to write this book with your background and everything. And I'm like, okay. And I said, and what's the name of the book? And they said, Naked in 30 Days. And I'm like, oh, this is going to be easy. Anybody, you know, you can lose weight, get your body in shape. I'm just going to go back to my competitive days. This is a good title, a good book. And they said, and we also need you to stand naked in Times Square for the back of the book. And I'm like, what's the front of the book? And they're like, we don't care. You can have the front be whatever you want, but the back of the book needs to be you naked in Times Square. We don't necessarily want to see the front side of you. We want to see the back side of you. I'm like, Oh, for God's sakes. So I had to have a talk with my family because I said, okay, one of two things can happen
this
that
is
day.
Fantastic.
One of two things can happen that day. Because I'm going to be naked in New York.
A book.
But I said, in New York, you can show your tatas, but you can't show your vajayjay. I'm going to be showing everything. So I can either get arrested or there's going to be pictures of me all over the internet because everybody's got a cell phone. And I need you guys, my family, to be okay with this. They were like, oh, we don't care, we don't care. So I didn't get arrested that day, but front pictures, back pictures, pictures of me went viral all over.
Oh my gosh.
And I can remember my husband coming home from playing golf one day and he said, geez, all the guys are looking at your picture on the internet. I don't really like this. And I said, I asked you if you were going to be okay with this.
Yeah.
And you said you were. I don't want to hear about it now. I said, you know what you should be saying to those guys? Yeah, my wife's in her 50s and look how damn good she looks.
You might look at it, but I'm going home to it.
Exactly. Exactly. But it was a scary moment because it was December. It was cold as hell. And the photographer, very, very, very well-known photographer, he said, we're doing this one time because there's a chance we can get arrested. And you're going to stand
One
out,
take, Theresa.
and you're standing in the middle of an intersection from all directions. So we've got to time the light right. You know, one way's one way. One, you know, so I'm like... And then he tricked me because we ended up doing 3 times because he needed the double yellow cabs.
Oh, yeah.
And he got it. And the police car in the background.
So you're wearing the robe. And
it was fur coat.
So
I had stilettos. I had Christian Louboutin stilettos on.
Of course you did.
And a full-length mink coat.
Was there a oh shit moment before that mink coat came on going, I'm doing this?
My heart was beating 100 miles an hour.
Oh, Theresa.
And I'm breathing and I can see my breath and it's cold and I'm like, this is so scary. It was one of those moments like being back on stage.
Oh yeah.
And you're vying for that title, you know, and yeah.
So when that robe comes off, what happened?
It didn't come off. You literally, I'm holding it. And then I'm supposed to just do this, open it, and let it slide down my arms. So from the top of my butt down, you don't see anything. You just see fur coat. But at the top, you can tell I'm naked. But so it happens. I get back to the sidewalk, and I'm like, oh, my
Did cars start honking?
Oh, yeah. People, cameras go. Like everything. Guy on a bicycle falls over. But I have to say, I did look damn good. But I get back to the curb, and then he's like, okay, I lied. We need to do it again. And I said, no, I can't do it again. But now, and at this point, I feel like everything's numb. Like I just feel like my whole body's numb. The anticipation, just, you know. Yeah. So the second time I go out wasn't as bad. Third time I went out, it was a piece of cake. But that first time,
oh man,
yeah, it was scary.
Where can people get a hold of you?
Where can they not get a hold of me?
Better point.
They go to my website, theresaroemer.com. I am on Instagram, Theresa.Roemer. I'm on Snapchat, Theresa Roemer 6. I'm on Twitter, Theresa Roemer. I'm on YouTube, Theresa Roemer. I'm on Facebook, Theresa Roemer. I'm on Facebook, Theresa Myers Roemer. I'm on TikTok, Theresa Roemer. I'm everywhere.
Man, you're quite the ninja. Yes, shaking his head. Do you sleep? You don't sleep. Team no sleep. Okay,
well, not only does he run my social media, he runs his own. And he's a makeup artist.
Yep.
So, and I don't even get him full time. I only get him part time because he's got to have time to be able to work on his brand and his social media too. So,
wow, quite the team.
But I think you know he worked for me for a while, and then there was a period of time where he wanted to just walk away because he felt like he needed to spend more time on his brand, and I honored that. I said, okay, but can I just have you one day a week where you can just edit stuff. And he said, yeah, I can just do one day, So we did that for a little while. And then he came back. And so, I think we're a great team. And I felt bad when he wanted to walk away and spend less time. But I honored that because I've always told everybody that's ever worked with me, I will never stand in the way of your dreams. And if you need to leave the nest and fly, I will encourage you 110%.
So we talked before the show, and if you said you wanted to grow your team, if somebody even wanted to remotely consider putting their hat in the Theresa Roemer ring to even be a part of your team, what do you look for? What do you need from somebody to be effective on the Theresa Roemer team?
Well, first of all, I don't need them to just be a fan. Don't come to work and don't come and work for me because you're a fan of me or a fan of my closet or any of that, or you want to be a mini Theresa. You need to come to the table with knowledge in your field, and if that's part of social media or whatever. But that's the part that pisses me off the most, I think, is when they're a fan and they want to come work with me. And it's like,
because they want to ride in the Bentley and they want to go shopping, they want to fly in the jet. They look at all the perks.
Right.
Yeah.
But they don't look at how much hard work it is. They have to be very honest, very faithful, very dependable. You have to remember they're in almost 18,000 square foot house. They're around a lot of luxury. They're in the world's largest closet. They have to sign NDAs. They have to, because at any given time, me or my husband can be on a phone with a lawyer talking things. We can be talking deals. It's like I try to tell people, I may not be the president of the United States, but I need you to act like you're working for the president of the United States. What you hear in this house doesn't leave this house. What you experience when you're here doesn't leave here. I mean, this is, I'm a person too, and I want my privacy also.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
There's been times where we've done some amazing stuff at my house, but he's not allowed to post about it. So it's really hard to weed through who's going to work for me. Like when he came to work, actually he didn't even come to work for me. He was actually one of my guests that I had. I had a event in my closet. And he was one of the speakers, and he was speaking on social media. So he was one of, I think, 6 speakers I had that day.
Love that.
So I had all these people. I had all these people in the closet, and he was one of the speakers. And he said that day, when he pulled through the gate, he had no idea who I was. I don't even think you Googled me. I don't know. I can't remember. But he said he came through that gate and he stopped right when he got inside the gate. And he said, I don't know what's going to happen today, but I feel like what's going to happen today is going to change the rest of my life. I don't know if I said that exactly verbatim, but that's basically, he never told me that. Okay. So that day he comes, he's the speaker, everything goes well. He has a good time. He meets me, blah, blah, blah. And about, I don't know, it was a week or two later, we contacted him and asked him if he'd be interested in a part-time job helping me with my social media, and he said, yeah. And then you can ask him right now, has your life changed since you've met me?
Hell yeah.
But of course, with a lot of the respect of the privacy and a lot of the things that happen, I can only imagine that you wouldn't hire somebody that would require an NDA for them to act in proper decorum either. Like there's a certain element of a personal ethic that you're able to see in somebody. Right. I mean, yes, for the business side, the NDA and all that is necessary, but if the NDA is necessary,
it's always necessary.
Right. But in the person's personality, like there has to be that trust factor. Like you should do the right thing because it's the right thing to do.
Right.
Not because you signed a piece of paper.
Right. Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. They should have morals and values to begin with.
Yeah.
Like I can remember one time we were gone and somebody was at my house and they asked my housekeeper if they could get the key to my closet. They had no business to be in my closet, even though they were working for me. Like, you don't go in the closet. Like, he would never even think of going in that closet unless I was in there with him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He's like, why would I need to be in there? because people want to be in there and they want to film and they want to take pictures and
Mm-hmm.
So immediately I was like, so my housekeeper, very honest, very dedicated. She's like, I was not about to give that person your key to your closet. I was
Right.
like, of course you wouldn't. You'd be without a job.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You know, in any, even in our culture here, like it's a tight group.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we go to battle for each other. A lot of long days, long nights, sometimes getting things done, and you build that sense of trust through the fire, right? Through grinding it out together.
Yeah.
Somebody comes on board that's new, and you haven't fought together yet.
Yeah.
Right, because there's that bond that comes from being on the battlefield together, like grinding it out, because you're reliable. Like you leveled up.
Yeah.
Right. You talked 100%, but then when push came to shove, you were there where others talk, and we talked about actions are the separator.
Yeah. That
really is how you determine who's honestly committed to the mission and who just wants it for optics or braggability or accessibility.
And there's people that always want to, they see what you have and they want it. I remember telling him the story back in the health club days, and I'd hired this one part-time firefighter to part-time work for me, and I put him in charge of all the pro shops. Here's, because he'd been with me for a while. Okay, and I need you to be in charge of pro shops. I want you to do the ordering and do everything. And after a while, it was going good for a while, and then after a while, I started noticing sales drops, and I was like, "This is weird," because I've been seeing we're still ordering the same amount of stuff, but my sales are dropping. And I went to one of my members, and I'm like, "So you're not buying creatine anymore?" "Oh no, I'm still buying it from you and everything." And I'm like, "Really? When was the last time you bought some?" "Oh, just last week." "Really?" Couldn't find any sales or anything. So called the company where I would get all my supplements and everything, and they're like, "Oh yeah, we're still fulfilling your orders, everything every week." I'm like, "Really? I haven't seen an order come in a long time." And they were like, "Well, this is the address we're shipping it to," which was not my health club's address. It was a home address.
Wow.
So what he was doing was he decided. So when I confronted him, I said, "Why are you doing this?" He said, "Well, hell, I saw what kind of money you were making, and I wanted to get a slice of the action." I'm like, "I trusted you."
You give trust first, up front?
I do, because I'm from that old nature of, I think there's good in everyone. And when you're raised on a small ranch and you're raised in that environment, you trust your neighbors because your neighbors have your back. Your neighbor might be 5 miles down the road, but they're there in a minute. If it's a branding, they're there to help you. If it's calving season and they need help, you're there to help them. Everybody, you just always trusted everybody because everybody had each other's backs. That's how you were raised. And so as I grew up, I started realizing that maybe I was naive because I wasn't really raised in the real world of the big cities and being taken advantage of and all that. I'd never experienced any of that. And so as an adult, being a little naive, I call it, I've had to learn that not everyone is nice. Not everyone is honest. There's not good in everybody.
I forget the movie this came from, but the quote was, "I trust everybody, just not the devil inside them."
That's a good one.
Right? And I was like, oh man, that is like mic drop moment right there.
Yeah.
Because that's true. I mean, it's
true.
But you'll find the core nature of somebody when they're really put in a corner.
Yeah.
Like you'll see who they really are.
Oh yeah, yeah. And I had a business partner like that. We went to business together and we started a company together called Diamond Life. And
God, you've done so many things. Oh my
well,
gosh, I love
because we wrote this book together,
Yeah,
right? And
yeah.
so we made some products together. Diamond Life was the umbrella company. It was like doing an LLC, and your ownership is based on how much money you put into the company. Okay. Well, we were always supposed to put in the same amount each month to cover bills, to do all this. My husband said, here's $100,000. I'm going to put it over here. Get into it whenever you need to. There's more when it needs to come from. Okay. Well, I thought her husband did the same thing, but apparently not. And so every time cash call came, because I was the business side of things and she was the creative side of things, she'd be like, "I don't have it this month." What do you mean you don't have it? Don't have it. And instead of my kids not having a Christmas, I'm going to give them a Christmas. So I'm like, Well, we still have vendors to pay. We still have bills to pay. Not my problem. Not your problem? Oh, my God. But she always knew I was going to cover, so I was always covering. So pretty soon, ownership started being like, pretty soon she had like, 80,000 into the company, and I had like 380,000 into the company. So when her marriage fell apart and she left, same thing, you put somebody in a corner, you're going to find out real fast. She went to the warehouse and took $80,000 worth of product. And when I said that wasn't yours to take, she's like, yes, it was. I put money into that company. And I'm like, no. That product belonged to Diamond Life, not you personally. You put money in, I put money in. And if you didn't notice, we're way off balance on ownership of company right now. Nope, that's mine. And I'm like, wow. And you were like my best friend and my business partner. And now you just turned on me. And I'm sure she went into survival mode. She's like a cat in the corner, claws out. Like she's trying to figure out how she's going to make a living now. I don't know,
What if she had just come to you?
Exactly. And I said that to her. I said, listen, I understand times are, and I said this so many times to her. I said, listen, I know times are hard right now for you. Let me float the boat. I just need you to stay on. We need to keep this boat going.
Communication.
Let me float the boat, and someday, some year down the road, we'll work it all out. Don't worry about it right now.
But instead, whether it be pride or
whatever, she went behind my back while I was in a meeting. She knew I couldn't get to that warehouse in time. And by the time I got to the warehouse, she'd taken over half the inventory.
Do you think money changes people or exposes people?
It only changes you if you let it change you. Like, I've had people say to me, oh, you're just not the same person you were 30 years ago. And I'm
God, I hope not. Hope we've all changed.
That's what I said. I said, thank God I'm not. I go back to my class reunions and they're like, oh my God, you're not the same person I graduated with. I'm like, oh, thank God. God forbid if I'd never moved forward and grown, So I'm like, I'm not that same person, but I am. Like, I'm still that little girl inside. I'm still that same person with those morals and those values. I'm still, and that's probably what helps keep me grounded so much, is because I am still that person inside. And I don't care if I'm driving a Bentley or a Rolls Royce or living in a $7 million house or whatever. That can all be gone in a second.
But it's still cool, though.
Well, it makes life a little easier.
Yeah.
You don't have to worry, God, can I get that gallon of milk tomorrow? Yeah. So it's probably a little easier in that sense. But like I said, it could all be taken away from me tomorrow and I'd be okay. I could start over.
Your identity is not caught up in it.
No.
I think for so many people, it is. That's why when they do, there's some people that they can't seem to stop enough because it's their identity.
Yeah.
Whether it's the Starbucks cup or it's the one pair of shoes that they have, or if it's the Nike or the Air Force Ones. If it's one day if I just have a Bentley, one day if I just have that $10 million house, or if I can fly on a private jet, like all these things, that's their identity.
But
right?
I have seen money change people, and it's sad because I look at them and go, really? We all still sit on the toilet the same way. You're not really better than me.
Yeah.
Just because you've got some money now.
Right.
But they change.
But then they can also change.
And then they treat people horribly. And I'm just like, really?
I was in a Denny's. This was with my kids. They were littler. This was actually in Kingwood, right? And it's everybody's coming to Denny's on a Saturday or Sunday morning. No big deal. And there's this family, husband, wife, and two younger kids. They were 4, 5, 6 years old. And the dad was wearing loafers, starched khaki shorts and a button up, and kind of the nice pristine hair, and everything was on point. And he came in, and it was kind of packed, and some people got seated ahead of them that had come in after them, and he got really upset, and he started to just berate this hostess at Denny's, making not very much.
Yeah, right.
Right. And I looked at my kids and I looked, everybody was just standing there, just not wanting, like, very uncomfortable. I'm like, hell no. Like, I've waited tables. Like, I've done the shit jobs, and I don't care how much, who you think you are, because it was a power thing.
Yeah.
Right. I said, sir, do you know who this is? You don't. You know how hard they work? You don't. I don't know you, but I do know how you're treating this person, and how would you like to be treated like the way that you're treating her?
Mm-hmm.
Nobody deserves that.
What was his response?
Wait your lunch just like everybody else. The wife got pissed, slapped him, shut up, because it exposed her too. Mm-hmm. Like, he was just being rude to people, right?
Yeah.
And there's other people on the other end of the spectrum, though, where it almost makes them even more humble, because they almost feel like having all that they do. It's like when we came back from Africa, right? And that sense of feeling undeserving and not worthy. There's a lot of people where when they get it, it almost makes them uncomfortable, right? This odd sense of humility because of it. And that's where I've seen it change people too, in that respect. But it's funny, a power trip that people get because of money. I had a business partner that, with employees, felt like everybody was his indentured servant.
Yeah, and that's why I've always told my employees, like I said earlier, I will never ask you to do something I won't personally do myself.
Right. Yeah.
If I want you to go clean the toilets, I'll go in there and clean the toilets with you. I remember when I used to work for Bally's, I would tell that to my employees all the time. And I'm a regional district supervisor. I'm overseeing all these locations, right? But I'm at West U one day, and I said to my staff, the sales staff, I was in a meeting with them, and I said, I'll never ask you. And I said, and by the way, today we're going to go out, and this was back when you could do it. I said, today we're going to go out and flyer these apartment complexes. And they all looked at me like, and I said, let's go. And they're like, oh, you're going to go with us? And I'm like, you goddamn right. Mm. We went out that door, got in cars, went down. I kicked off the high heels, put on the sneakers, and we went to town flyering apartment complexes, right? To this day, one of my old employees, Rick Adesina, he works for, I believe it's Lifetime Fitness. He will tell that story till he's blue in the face. He's like, remember that time that you you did all the flyers with us at the apartment complexes? And we were all like, whoa, look at her. She's doing it with us. Like, this is so cool. I'm like, don't just talk the talk, walk the walk. Like, I'm not gonna expect you guys to do something I'm not gonna do myself. Mm-hmm. And it was like the middle of August. It was 100 degrees outside. Mm-hmm. I'm in a suit and everything. I don't know. And they were just so impressed that I was out there doing it with them, that I didn't make them just go do it. I was out there doing it with them.
You talked about earlier about whenever you start up a business, it's like an infant, right? And it's 24/7 care, and you've got to nurture it through the stages. Mm-hmm. For people, because I think we're in a entrepreneur era. Everybody wants to be an entrepreneur. Everybody's got CEO of something in their Instagram bio.
But not everybody's cut out to be an entrepreneur. But you have to be self-driven, and that's the problem. There's people out there that are capable of being an entrepreneur, being their own boss, and then there's the worker bees. Perfect example, my daughter. You would think, who her mom is, that she would be of entrepreneurial type person. Mm-hmm. And I've tried to set her up in many, many different businesses, and she can't do it. Mm. She's a worker bee. Mm-hmm. She will work for you till the cows come home, and she will put out tremendous amount of work. But she doesn't have the ability to be self-employed. Mm. She doesn't know how to, like when I tried to get her with her own salon, because she was a cosmetologist, she had no idea how to get out there and get her own business. And so I was doing everything. I was doing all the flyers for her, the postcards. I was out there at the mall trying to talk to all the girls in the makeup departments. Oh, she'll cut your hair for free. Just come. I mean, but she, no clue how to do it. Mm. And I said, you know what? That's okay. We have to have the worker bees in life that just want to work and collect their every 2-week paycheck and have that stability of knowing all I got to do is go put in my time, collect my money, boom. Because not everybody's able to think outside the box and be creative and do what you have to do to be self-employed.
Lean on your strengths, right? Mm-hmm. I think partly that's where a lot of people miss it, is they feel like they have to be this solopreneur or start a venture to become successful, to have the optics, right? I'm not going to blame social media, because social media there's nothing wrong with it. It just exposes tendencies in people already, but they're trying to posture too much.
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
when you're 22 years old saying you're going to be the CEO of something, being the CEO, you've been a CEO, Anthony's a CEO, the responsibilities and weight that come from a CEO is monumentally, exponentially way more than people could ever imagine. I mean, like through the pandemic and closure and here at the office when we had 600 plus people had to get laid off, right? And I remember walking by his office and it was just him too. And we had taken all the liquor out of the tune-ups that we had owned and all here in the conference room. So, you know, had a little bit of whiskey and, you know, whatever. And I remember walking by his office and the pile of paperwork that was just every day was more and more and more. And I walked in and I just looked at him and I said, that's the shit that people don't realize what it takes to be a CEO. It sounds good on a business card.
Sure.
Sounds good on an Instagram letterhead. It sounds good on a LinkedIn title or role, but the actual practical part of being a CEO, a working CEO, running 1 to 5 fitness locations with the different brands you're doing, there was so much work involved.
Nights you didn't sleep.
Right.
Worrying about things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm just like, and I don't know if it's just the generation that's out there now or what, but they don't really know what goes on behind the scenes that you have to deal with.
Is that partly what drives you a lot of times to show so much on social media? Is so that people understand the work that it takes?
Yeah. Yeah. And plus I'm the kind of person too that I don't even care if I don't have makeup on. I can literally turn the camera on and film and go, this is the real deal today.
Do you, okay, so
I need you guys to realize that not every day is there makeup and beauty and everything. Today, there's no makeup and we're cutting tree limbs down.
You know what's interesting is when I ran through your social media real quick, I looked at a lot of the engagement on a lot of your posts. The posts that where there's no makeup or it's like a kind of an organic moment has way more engagement. Mm-hmm. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah. Well, because then they realize that you're real.
Right.
Like anybody, and I try to say this all the time, anybody can look good with makeup on and their hair done and the best clothes on. You know, like you can find that on Instagram, Fakeagram, whatever you want to call it, all day long. Okay.
I love that.
But when you literally are there with no makeup on, your hair's a mess, and you're in a pair of workout pants and a T-shirt, there's not a lot of photoshopping or whatever you want to call it that can be done. And, you know, but then it makes them realize that you're real. Like, oh, I thought she's a real person. Mm-hmm. And that's why a lot of times in some of my videos, too, on YouTube, if I can just do a video periodically that talks like I'm like what we're doing here, you know, they're just like, wow. Because like you said, they have this image of you, and then when you really start to unravel and pull back the layers, they're like, whoa, we didn't know that about her. Oh, wow, shoot, you know.
Yeah.
Do people really realize that I slept on a mattress on a floor for a year? Do people realize that I lived in the back of a health club for a year?
They're going to now.
But I'm just saying, you know.
Yeah.
Just, you know. Do people realize that I almost died on Mount Kilimanjaro?
That's the underdog. That is the winning underdog, Theresa.
It is.
I think that's the part that people need to really learn and respect more than somebody with a number of followers. It's, okay, that's cool that you got 300,000 plus followers, you got 1 million, you got 200 million followers, but who's the person that became this? Like, don't look at the success candy, right? Want to know the grind that brought them to that point.
Right.
Because that's really where you draw inspiration. That's where you gain relatability, and that's where you find hope.
Well, and I don't want to badmouth or bad name anybody, but there was a little fight back when Kylie Jenner supposedly became a billionaire. Okay, and she was claiming that she was self-made. Mm-hmm. I had a huge argument with that because I was like, you were not self-made. If you would have never been on your family's TV show,
it's true.
You would not be where you're at today. Mm-hmm. Because being on a TV show and letting people grow up with you on a TV show is what got you to where you're at now. Mm-hmm. Because without those followers, because I know what it was like when I was trying to sell something and had no followers. It's almost impossible. Mm-hmm. You got to resort to peddling it out of the back of the trunk of the car or something. You know what I'm saying?
Hustling mixtapes.
But I'm just saying,
Yeah.
to me, self-made is when you literally put your own money down or get a loan or whatever, and you start it from scratch.
Mm-hmm.
She already had money in the bank from her TV show, her family TV show,
Mm-hmm.
to help her get started with that. So,
Yeah.
you know, I guess difference of opinion, but I find that hard to believe that you can claim you're self-made when you've rode on the shirt tails of a TV show for how many years?
Mm-hmm. For anybody that's wanting to start a business at this point, what would be your advice?
Know what you're doing. Have a good game plan.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, a really good game plan, good business plan. You know, what's your business plan look like, you know, not only right now, but, you know, 2 years out, 5 years out, 10 years out. Kind of, I don't know. I always try to tell people, get into something you know. I think it's really hard to start a business when it's something you don't have a clue about.
Mm-hmm. Because you're going to have to nurture that thing 24/7.
Like, for instance, the person who bought my clubs, you know, I had no clue. It's no longer open. They're no longer in business.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Mm.
I think he lasted 3 years.
Wow.
Which was really sad, because if he would have ever come back to me and said, don't know what I'm doing, losing my ass, I would have said, well, great thing is I'll buy it back, but it'll be a way less than what you paid me.
Yeah.
Because you're not successful. I was.
Mm-hmm.
But I think sometimes people try to get into something they're totally unfamiliar with, and it's hard to learn it as you're trying to build it and grow it.
Mm-hmm. You've had this common thread through your entire journey so far, Theresa, has just been this stick-to-itiveness,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's this level of you're not afraid to put in the work. Mm-hmm. You're not afraid for it to not work,
No.
right? Because you'll always find something.
Like I said, failure at least shows you're trying.
Mm-hmm.
And I always try to tell Mr. Fab or anybody that ever talks with me, coaches with me, whatever, you know, at least try. Like, fear we're all scared of all kinds of stuff, you know? And like that builder said to me when I was sitting on the fence post trying to figure out if I was going to buy that health club or not, you know, he was like, well, while you're sitting here wasting your time, somebody else is going to buy it, and then you're going to work for them. I was letting fear control my destination. And so it's like sometimes you just got to get out of your own way.
Mm-hmm.
Because we can sabotage ourselves so easy.
We can. But then we can also set ourselves up for success.
Sure.
In the same right.
Exactly.
It's how we empower ourselves.
Yep.
Theresa, thank you for coming today.
You're welcome.
This has been such a phenomenal just talk to learn about just your come up.
Yeah.
It's, you know, even doing what I could to find out, but I was so excited to really hear from you this journey, because you just unveiled so many layers that I don't know if a lot of people have known a lot about this about you, but it is, I'm just so amazed, like everything that you've taken in life and how you've turned it, you know, and you faced it and you kept moving forward.
Like I said, you can either be a victim or a victor. And I think everyone needs to be a victor in life, you know, because, you know, take the little kid that grows up in Harlem and is surrounded by drug addicts and abuse and all that, you know, and then you see this person come out of Harlem and they become a doctor and whatever, you know, same thing. They could have stayed a victim of their surroundings, or they said, no, I'm going to have a different life. And they took the bull by the horns and chose a different life and created a different life. And I think everyone, I don't care who you are, everyone has that chance and that ability. Sometimes you need help. You can't do it on your own. That's okay. Ask for help. And they're like, oh, if I ask for help, it's a sign of weakness. No, it's not. A sign, when you ask for help, and I even go back to personal training days, not everybody knows how to eat right or exercise right, because we weren't, unless you were lucky enough to have parents that knew it, but most of us didn't. You had no clue. So you have to hire a personal trainer to learn. Well, same thing with mental health. You know, maybe if you're having some issues, it's not a sign of weakness to go hire a psychologist to have therapy sessions with. God knows I've done plenty of that. Because when I got divorced from my first husband, he was so verbal and physical abusive that I didn't feel like I was even worthy of breathing the same air that you were breathing. I was like, I felt like I was a piece of crap in the gutter. So I wasn't strong enough all by myself to overcome that, because he had done so much damage to me in 7 years. And then with my mom and all, years of all of that abuse. And so it's not a sign of weakness when you have to hire someone to talk to help you be able to move past all of that.
Amen. I have, for sure.
It's like the law. If somebody's suing you, you don't just try to handle the case yourself. You go hire a lawyer who's going to handle it for you, because you don't know how to do that. It's okay to ask for help in life.
Be resourceful. That's the thing that I've found to be the common trait, is because we're in an age where there's not a lack of resources, but there are those who seem to lack the ability to be resourceful.
Right.
That's whether it's fear, pride, whatever it may be, but that's the one thing that holds them back. Asking for help, looking for, oh my God, you can YouTube anything. You can figure out how to build a house by YouTube videos, right? It's unbelievable. Like, it's amazing what we have now on our fingertips, right? There's nothing you can't.
You can YouTube anything.
You can. Scary. That is a little scary on one hand.
It is.
But also just on the practical side, it is amazing what we have to be able to take an idea and figure out how to do it.
Yeah.
Right? Thank you, Theresa.
You're welcome.
I appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me.
Guys, if you have any questions for Theresa, feel free to comment below. If you like this, you want to hear more, subscribe. But we will talk to you guys next time on 100% Tilted Discussions with Winning Underdogs.